The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It is a big morning. We've got a lot of stuff going on. You know, if you've been watching the show, we have a format that we usually follow here because we talk about topics that have to do with autism, and we are going to be with you for the next 3 hours, but there's a lot of stuff that's been going on in the last 24 hours that we have to take a moment to talk about, and we're going to continue to talk about throughout the show, and we have some very important guests that are going to be joining us today. You know, in the good news, bad news category, lots of things to talk about, but we want to start with, because a member of our community has had a bit of a tragedy, that if you watch the show, we've had Tom Hibben on the show. He is a wonderful dad, an autism dad, a blogger. He and his wife have a wonderful photography business, and it is my understanding that yesterday they lost their house to a fire. They have 3 small children, one of whom is on the spectrum. Tom writes the book Adventures in Asperger's and the blog, and they lost their home and all their photography equipment yesterday. So we were notified this morning by Sunday Stillwell, who is another wonderful, wonderful mom blogger, and we are going to be posting on our Facebook page more information about this. But there is a Hibben Fire Fund. You can go on the screen, you can see there, you can go to fundraiser.com and put in Hibben Fire Fund, and you can donate whatever it is that you have to donate, whether it's $1 or you have more. But even more importantly, because you may not have more than $1 to give right now, but I hope that you have at least $1 to give to this family who's struggling to imagine all the things that we go through on a daily basis, right? And this family has worked really hard to make autism work in their home and created a business so that they could both be home more and be able to attend appointments and things on their son's behalf, and they've essentially lost their home, all the possessions, and all of the equipment that goes for their business. Absolutely devastating. So give what you can, but more importantly, share this information. We're going to be putting it up on our Facebook page at some point this morning when somebody helps me to figure out how to do that. And you can click on it and you can share it because you may know somebody, if you only have $1, you may know somebody who's in a position that they can give $5 or potentially even more. It's that thing about, you know, treating others as we would want for them to treat us. And this is a member of our community, a wonderful, wonderful dad, Tom Hibben, and they've lost their home and their equipment, which is how they keep a roof over their heads. And I should note that at this point in time, our understanding is that everyone is okay, and we'll be trying to get more updates about that. But, you know, the loss of possessions, we're going to keep it in perspective that, thank heavens, it appears that everybody is okay, but still absolutely devastating. Imagine if you lost everything in your home and the ability to make your living today and still had a child with autism. So we hope that you'll participate and give whatever support that you can, even if it's just sharing. Share the information and put it out there to your community because you never know what can happen, right? Okay, and we'll be showing that again later throughout the show. And of course, our highest well wishes go to the Hibben family, who we just adore. And, you know, to Tom, who, you you want to talk about an awesome dad. He was a paramedic, a hero in his community, and his wife did photography, and he needed to be home more. There's 3 growing boys, 1 on the spectrum. So let's show them our love and support. Also have to note, very notably, that there was a Supreme Court decision this morning that upheld the Affordable Care Act, and it has sweeping implications for those of us with children on the spectrum, some of which I didn't fully understand, quite frankly, until this morning. I'm hoping that tomorrow we're going to be able to bring in at least one expert who's going to be able to explain some of that to us. But I did have conversations with multiple experts this morning in insurance and autism, and I'm told that overwhelmingly that we can all just say that everything is status quo today. It doesn't mean that our problems are solved, but everything is status quo. We're going to talk more about that in just a few minutes as to what that exactly is. And I got to tell you, I didn't know what the status quo was. And I'm kind of excited to hear what the status quo was this morning, and to share that with you. But hopefully we're going to have another expert with us tomorrow to discuss that as well. Okay, so back to business as usual. I want to welcome you to the show. We are going to be talking about topics having to do with autism all this morning for the next 3 hours live. And we particularly talk about ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, because we know that ABA, listen, the Surgeon General has referred to it as the gold standard of treatment for autism. It is, in fact, the only treatment that has been proven to be effective for autism. Scientifically proven to be effective, and in addition to that, it's effective for all of our kids in gaining progress, getting our kids closer to their highest potential. Is that going to be the same for all children? Absolutely not, because our kids are all individuals. There's this big, huge spectrum which encompasses our children. Our children come in at different places. They have different skill deficits. They have different skill abilities. So no 2 of them, they're like snowflakes, right? No 2 of our kids are the same, and their progress is all going to be different. But what is encouraging to me as an autism mother is that there is progress available for all of our children, whether your child is very profoundly affected and they are 2 years old, or your child is profoundly affected and they are 28, whether your child is only mildly affected and they are 5, or your child is mildly affected and they are 45, whether it is not your child, whether it is your student or your client, there is progress that is available for all of our kids if we cleverly and creatively apply the tools of ABA to the individual child and to their individual skill sets and their individual methods of learning. So we want to give you a toolkit here. That's really what we're about. We want to have you strap on that belt, and we're going to start sticking things in the holes in your belt and show you which tool you might want to use at a certain time, how you might want to use it, but give you a bigger idea of the scope of these tools and let you be creative, because nobody knows your child better than you do, right? Isn't that the truth? Don't we wish everybody knew that? Nobody knows your child like you do, and we want to put the tools in your hands so that you can be a really effective, really efficient member of the team. Got to be a team, right? Nobody can do this by themselves. But for you to be the most efficient, most effective member of the team and apply those tools in a way that helps to reach your child and have them reach their highest potential. That's what we're about here. And I have to say out the gate that while I want to help you to get those tools, I am not an expert in ABA. I am not an expert in behavior. I am not an expert in insurance. I'm not an expert in law. I'm not an expert in nutrition. I'm a mom. I am the mom of a wonderful 9-year-old who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, started his ABA therapy at 3 here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and my child has made such tremendous progress. He didn't have functional communication skills when we started and had virtually lost any ability to speak and communicate, and he is little Mr. Communicator now. He is starting the 4th grade in the fall, typical 4th grade, has been included with neurotypical peers since kindergarten. But I can tell you that the 2 years prior to kindergarten, we were told not to hope for that, to let go of that. That was not going to happen. Or the one person that was like, oh yeah, he can go to neurotypical kindergarten. And I said, and be learning the same things that they are. Oh no, but you know, that's not necessary for all children, right? But my child had the benefit of a really quality, early, intensive behavioral intervention. And I am so incredibly grateful for that I'm thrilled to be able to be here and be a conduit for you to those experts that I am not. So when you want to talk to a BCBA, a board certified behavior analyst, when you want to talk to somebody who's an expert in insurance, when you want to talk to somebody who's an expert in special education law, I want to be your conduit to those people. And I have access to them on your behalf. So how do you take advantage of that? Well, you ask a question, give a suggestion, you let us know, because I can't be a mind reader, can't be here and be a mind reader and be an autism mom. I'm sorry, there are limits to what I can do. But you have a way that you can let me know very clearly. And then I can run and have our team on it to help to get the answers to you. So how do you participate? If you're watching us right now on autism-live.com, you will see that there is a box that says your questions. If the screen says live, that box is active. It's active right now. You can type anything in there, hit enter, and it will show up here. Even if you want to do your typing practice, you could, and it would show up on my screen. I'm working on typing this summer because I am a very slow typist, and my son's working on typing, so we're doing this together. Daddy is too. But anyway, write to us. Tell us your suggestions, your questions, your concerns, what's going on in your house, what is preventing you from getting the right amount of ABA therapy, because I want to help you to figure that out. Whatever it is, if it's the funding, let's talk about where you are in the world, what state you're in if you're in the United States. Let's figure out how you're going to get this. But if it doesn't say live, if it says rebroadcast, you can email us. And our technical director for the day is Matt, and he's starting to put up there on the screen for you some of the different ways that you can get a hold of us. So email us day or night, wherever you are in the world. We will answer your question on the next available live show, and we will send you a typewritten response. Sometimes that takes a couple of days because I'm seeing that when we cover it on the show, what we want to do is send you the link to it on the show too, and that takes a day or two. So they're coming. Those of you who have asked questions, fear not, I have not forgotten you. It's in the pipeline. Okay, so you can also phone us. We really love your phone calls. You can be patched right into the studio so that we could be having a conversation live, or you could talk to somebody outside the studio if you're shy and you just want an answer to your question and don't want the whole world to hear what your question is. I get that. And we want to be helpful to you in the way that you need to be helped. So feel free to call in. If it's after hours, you can leave a message and we will call you back as soon as we're back in the studio. You can also Skype with us. We love this. If you're international, we Skyped internationally earlier this week with a wonderful mom blogger in Denmark. So we're loving that and wanting to do more of that, but you can Skype us from wherever you have Skype service. For most of you, it is free, and we certainly enjoy talking to you via Skype. If you've got a camera, we can also have your picture side by side, or we can just do the audio only, whatever you prefer. Okay, you can also be talking to us on Facebook. Want to remind you that we have a new Facebook page that is strictly for Autism Live, and we're encouraging you to go there and answer the question of the day. I know a lot of you have gotten used to answering it in different places, but we'd love it if you would start answering the question of the day on our Facebook page that is just for Autism Live. I know that yesterday Evelyn Gould was with us, and one of you reminded us that we had not talked about the list of potential reinforcers. And I did post it early this morning. I'm not sure how conducive it is, and so I'm going to have some IT people help me to get it in a way that's more conducive. But there is a list of reinforcers on the Facebook page, and it's kind of fabulous, the list. And I don't know if you can only access one column of it. We'll check it out. But And it's one of many that we're going to be posting because there were so many on the list that it's going to take multiple pages. So I think we might just be doing that either once a week or every day for 2 weeks. I don't know. So that will unfold. But while you're there, do me a favor and like our Facebook page. We feel like the sad little newcomer on Facebook. So give us a like while you're there if you would. And you can also tweet with us. We are on Twitter and we appreciate your tweets. We're going to be tweeting today throughout the day about the Hibben Family Fire Fund. This is a wonderful family that needs our help and support. And you know what? The money is important, right? Because they have to start all over, but your support is even more important. That, you know, if you want to be sending a message to that family and let them know you are not alone. Imagine what we would want if this were to happen to your family. You would want to know that people saw and heard and appreciated and that your thoughts and prayers were with them, right? Okay, so those are a lot of different ways that you can get a hold of us, but I mentioned that if you're watching us on autism-live.com, there are lots of places to watch us. You could be watching us on blip.tv. That's a wonderful way to watch us. You can go back and watch old episodes. You can go back and see the episodes. We've done 2 different segments with Tom Hibben and his family and see who this wonderful dad is. You can search that on blip.tv. You can search other topics. You want to know about feeding issues. You want to know about sleep issues. You want to know about toileting issues. You can put in whatever the topic is and search blip.tv. You can rewind, fast forward, pause when things happen in your house, as they will, and utilize the information in that way. By the way, you can also do that on our YouTube channel, which is also there for you. All of these different ways that we're available to you are free, so check us out on YouTube. Great way to interact with us there as well, because you can leave comments on videos, you can ask questions, and we'll make sure, even, you know, it could be months ago, but you see a comment made by Dr. Michael Dorsey, or you see a comment made by Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, and you say, okay, I wish I knew more about that, or I didn't really understand how this applies in this instance. Write us the question. You can do it on YouTube, and we will get an answer from that expert and get back to you. So wonderful way. You can also download us for free on iTunes. Really easy way to watch us. You can subscribe. You don't have to subscribe. You can download individual episodes and watch picture and sound. We have sound only coming. It's coming. I don't know when, but it's coming. I keep being told it's coming. And you can also watch us on Ustream. All these wonderful ways that are available to you are all free. We hope that the information is helpful to you. That's what we're shooting for. If we're not making that mark, will you please let us know and let us know what would be helpful. Again, I gave up mind reading to be here and to be an autism parent. It's not true. I never could mind read. We did get a question through the night that we're going to address in just a few minutes, but it is time for the question of the day and our topics of the day and our jargon of the day. So let's start with the jargon of the day, shall we? Every morning, I consider this our warm-up, that we take one word, one phrase, one anagram, and we demystify it for you, give you an actual definition, and then kind of pare it down, simplify it, give you a working definition, which is not as specific, it's not as accurate, but we need to start someplace, right? And until you get to know a few of the jargon terms, it can be very overwhelming, those actual definitions. I like to make fun of them because I hate it when you ask somebody a question, they give you a jargon term, you ask what the jargon term is, and they give you more jargon. Really? Because that's so helpful. Right? Especially when you're overwhelmed, overtired, overtaxed, right? Is that really what you want to do? But we have wonderful experts that they are used to speaking in their jargon. And I will tell you quite honestly that if you stick around long enough on this journey, you start speaking in some of the jargon too, and people start looking at you like you've lost your mind. You haven't. You've just turned to the dark side and gotten used to the jargon. We have to at least make friends with it, right? Okay. So we've been going over some of the diagnostic terms this week, and today's phrase is Asperger's syndrome. So what's the actual definition of Asperger's? Here we go. it's kind of lengthy here. An autism spectrum diagnosis, which includes the following: repetitive routines or rituals, peculiarities in speech and language, such as speaking in overly formal manner or in a monotone, or taking figures of speech literally, socially and emotionally inappropriate behavior, and the inability to interact successfully with peers, problems with nonverbal communication, including restricted use of gestures, limited or inappropriate facial expressions, or a peculiar stiff gaze, clumsiness, and uncoordinated motor movements, and the definition: autism spectrum disorder that does not include a delay in language acquisition. So we were talking yesterday about PDD-NOS, right, and autism, and talking about it in terms of this menu in a Chinese restaurant, right? You got these three columns. You have a social column, that there is a marked delay or inability to do certain socially appropriate things. Things in that column include eye contact, being able to take somebody else's perspective, having empathy for somebody else, hold down a conversation with give and take, right? Then we have the language category, which is an inability to acquire language at an appropriate skill level for an age, right? And then you have the third column, which is repetitive and restrictive motions. If we're going to be really simplistic about this, and I guarantee you it is more complex than this, but if we were going to be really simplistic, when we were looking at autism and PDD-NOS, classic autism means you got to have a total of 6 things from those 3 categories, and you must have 2 from the social, 1 from the language, and 1 from the repetitive and restrictive in order to qualify. You can have many more from each one of those, but you have to have at least 2 of the social, 1 of the language, and 1 of the repetitive and restrictive motions. If you don't have that, but you do have something from language and you do have something from social, and let's say you do or don't have something restrictive, then you might get a PDD-NOS diagnosis. However, if you were to take the whole column of the acquisition of language out, maybe the child or the young adult has problems with social language, but they've had no difficulty acquiring language, and you pluck that column out, then you are very likely looking at an Asperger diagnosis. So if the child is completely verbal and speaking and capable of learning and acquiring language, but you are seeing those other symptoms, then in all likelihood, Asperger's. When I mentioned yesterday that when my son got his diagnosis, and I should have gone on to the working definition, when my son got his diagnosis, and we all walk into that room with whatever knowledge we have or don't have, and I had very little walking into that room where he was diagnosed. And I remember I was hoping for either a PDD-NOS, because in my head that meant not as severe, and we wouldn't have that label of autism, or I was hoping for Asperger's, because to me that meant, oh, brilliantly, wildly intelligent with some social aspects to it. And I was walking in with a son who had been acquiring language typically and then lost all of it and was not able to speak. So when the doctor said, yeah, autism, in her German accent, and I said, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about Asperger's? And she was like, oh, no, clearly not. And I didn't understand. And in the moment I thought, oh, does that mean, a lack of intelligence? No, it was my lack of intelligence that it meant. Because clearly he didn't qualify for Asperger's because he hadn't had a typical, he had not developed language and was not acquiring language and had a huge language deficit. So there was no way that he qualified for Asperger's. Let's take a look at what our working definition of Asperger's is. Autism spectrum disorder that does not include a delay in language acquisition. But one of the things that's fascinating to me, that since starting the show, that I have learned about Asperger's that I did not know before, is that while in the current definition of autism there is nothing about motor capabilities, in the current definition of Asperger's there is. That the child has marked delay in motor or of, what is the phrase that I'm trying to think of? Being uncoordinated. that is a part of, you don't necessarily have to have that to get an Asperger diagnosis, but it is a part of it. And it is not a part of an autism diagnosis in the current criteria in the DSM-4. Yes, everything is about to change in 2013 with the DSM-5, and we've talked about that a little bit, and I know we're going to talk more about that next week of what that actually looks like, a comparison from the DSM-4 to the DSM-5. Because as we mentioned yesterday, when we go to the DSM-5, there will be no more PDD-NOS. There will be no more Asperger's. They are just going to put it under an autism spectrum disorder, and they're going to include aspects that would include somebody who potentially had PDD-NOS before, would include people who had Asperger's before, although the current fear is that there are some in both of those categories that just aren't going to get a diagnosis. And what will that mean in terms of treatment, in terms of insurance, in terms of healthcare? Big topic today, healthcare and what's going to happen for autism. Okay, let's take a look at what our question of the day is for today. Our question of the day today, a little bit different, maybe slightly off topic, not necessarily. If you could invite any 3 people to dinner, who would it be and why? And I remember being asked this question when I was a teenager, right? It's just one of those questions that, people ask. It's like one of those party questions. And of course, my question, and I think most people ask, wait, are we allowed to invite people who are only living or anyone from any time, right? Because it makes the question different. And I think it's probably whatever you choose, but I'm going to specify that it's only people who are living. For me, I think, man, it's a really loaded, well, I definitely would invite Temple Grandin. I probably would invite David Letterman. I know that says a lot about me, doesn't it? And who else would I invite? Oh, it would be such a toss-up. Probably Bono from U2, because I'm a huge fan of David Letterman, always have been, and he would make the conversation much more interesting and much more fun. Temple Grandin, come on, it's completely obvious, isn't it? I would love to sit and have a conversation with Temple Grandin. Temple Grandin, through her words, has helped me to understand how my son thinks, which has helped me to reach further into my child. Temple Grandin has been writing for years and writing about how she sees things visually. And I remember thinking about that when I was a teenager and thinking, well, doesn't everybody? Because I'm a visual learner. I'm a visual thinker. So it wasn't, I know that she is that to a huger degree, but it didn't seem shocking to me. And I remember thinking, really? There are people who don't think that way? And it wasn't until my son was diagnosed and I was watching a lecture online with Temple Grandin, and she was talking about the different ways in which people with autism think, and that she's visual and that she has friends that are conceptual. And talking about how they see things and how they're visual, but with a difference, and that they can turn things around and flip it upside down. And I went, oh my gosh, that's my son. And it changed how I talked to him, because I was frustrating him sometimes, that I would talk to him in pictures and think, why is he not getting this? And it would literally make him antsy. It would bring on anxiety because he didn't have a context. He didn't have a framework. We're playing Draw Something at home right now as a family, on my husband's phone and my phone. And it's interesting to me because sometimes I will play Draw Something with people that I don't know, just random people. And it's fascinating how few people put something into a context. That somebody will draw a picture of something, but if they don't put it in a context, it's really hard to figure it out. And that's my son's experience of the world. You can sit here and tell him anything, and it just goes whoosh, until he has a context to put it in. And once I learned that about him, it began a shift that enabled us to be able to communicate better. Do I have it all figured out yet? No. But we're working on it. And I would invite Bono because I was I've actually met Bono, and way back when. But I was a huge fan of you two early on, but in terms of what he has seen in the world and what he has done in the world, I think he'd be a really interesting person to talk to now. I think it's been 30 years since I met him. Oh my, that dates both of us, doesn't it? In any case, who would you invite to dinner? I'm really interested to see. You can answer the question on our Facebook page, or you can tweet it to us, or you can write it to us. But I'd love to hear, and hopefully we'll have time later on today to talk about who you would invite to dinner and why. All right, we always have a topic of the day. The topic of the day is, it's turned into the topic of the week. That's okay. This week it has been starting EIBI, and if you were watching on Monday, that was our jargon term for Monday. EIBI stands for Early Intensive Behavioral Intervention. It is what we all need to get on board, and when we say early, I know it brings up things for all of us because honestly, I have yet to meet the parent who feels like they were able to start as early as they would have liked to have, right? So release all the guilt, release all of the trepidation. Early means now, right? So if your child is 3, it's now. If your child is 8, it is now. If your child is 45, it is now. It is never too late, but there is an urgency about starting as soon as you can. And the reason why is that you have less to catch up. If you start today as opposed to next week, there is literally less to catch up. If you're in a position where your child is losing skills on a daily basis, right, while other children are gaining skills, the gap is going like this. Or your child has stagnated and is here while other children are doing this, and they're doing this, and the gap gets further and further, right? Even if, children are growing like this and your child is growing like this, it's moving in the right direction, and we have to get started as soon as we possibly can. Early, intensive behavioral intervention is the key to helping our children reach their highest potential. And we know, according to the studies, the outcome studies that have been done for the last 15 years, 20 years, really 25 years now. I'm thinking, no, it's really longer than that, 87. So that's 25, right? So for the last 25 years, the outcome studies have clearly shown that if we can get in there and be intensive, the best outcomes are going to be when we start as early as possible. As early as possible. Here are the possible. Okay, to that end, some of the different things that we're going to be talking about today, we have a generalization tip for you. We are going to backtrack a little bit and talk a little bit about insurance and the Affordable Health Care Act and what the status quo that today's Supreme Court decision has delivered. Then at 10 o'clock, we are going to have Denise Rhine, who is from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, Rochester, New York office. And so she's going to be with us and talking about EIBI in New York and about what kinds of services they provide and a whole host of other things. So we'll be talking with her. And then at 11 o'clock, we are going to be talking with Angela Persicke. She's been on the show before. She is from the research department of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and she's got a wide variety of things that she's going to be coming in and talking with us about at 11 o'clock. You have the ability to ask these people questions. Both of these women are people who have been working with children on the autism spectrum for years. They are a wealth of knowledge. I believe they're both BCBAs, Board Certified Behavior Analysts. You have the opportunity to ask them questions. And I can remember when we started on this journey that I thought, man, while I was waiting to start ABA, and even after I was starting ABA, there were questions that I had. And I was constantly looking for, where can I get this information? Do I need to buy a book? Do I need to go to the library and check a book out? Do I need to get an appointment with this expert that is halfway across the world? What do I need to know, and how am I going to find it out? Well, we hope that you've started asking, what do I need to know, and that you will start to ask us so that we can chase down the answers for you. And you can ask these two really good examples of people who can be answering your questions. So participate with us. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about what this Supreme Court decision today could mean for us and for our kids on the spectrum. Stick with us.
is a revolutionary web-based program that incorporates comprehensive assessment, curriculum design, progress tracking, and treatment evaluation for children with autism all in one place. Developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Our approach is based on over 40 years of research on the principles of learning and their application to improving the lives of children with autism. How does Skills work? Created with speed and simplicity in mind, Skills was modeled on an easy 3-step process. Step 1. Start assessment. Step 1 begins with our intelligent assessment system, which consists of a series of questions. This assessment is essential to identifying your child's level of skills compared to their typical peers across all areas of development. This includes assessing social, motor, language, adaptive, play, cognition, executive functions, and academic skills. Every skill has an assigned age which indicates when the skill emerges during typical development. This means that each child is automatically presented only with lessons that are relevant to his or her age. Step 2. Choosing activities. It's now easier than ever to build an individualized treatment plan. In Step 2, you are presented with an individualized pool of activities that are directly linked to your student's assessment results. Each activity represents a specific skill that has been indicated by the assessment as needing to be taught. Activities are categorized by curriculum and then by lesson. There are 3 main types of skills: building blocks, fundamental, and expansion skills. Fundamental skills are necessary for successful everyday functioning. Building blocks are prerequisites to a fundamental skill. Expansion skills are non-essential skills, but may provide further enrichment in certain areas. After reviewing the activities available to you, you can quickly add your chosen activities to the treatment plan by simply checking the box and clicking the button. Step 3. Start treatment. Once you have selected and added the activities you want, you are ready to begin teaching. Skills provides you with all the tools necessary to design and manage an effective curriculum plan, such as printable activity guides that are customizable by the teacher, supplemental teaching aids including printable data sheets, teaching guides, visual aids, worksheets, and tracking forms, detailed IEP goals and benchmarks for each activity, brief and visually appealing video tutorials, a variety of treatment progress and clinical timeline charts, and lots more. And since Skills is completely web-based, everything you need is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in one easy-to-access location. Skills users even benefit from unlimited access to a support community where they can ask questions and share ideas with a skills expert. Skills is always with you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Of course, we have autism news this morning, right? Because the United States Supreme Court came down with a decision this morning, a very close decision, but in favor of the Affordable Care Act, sometime in some circles known as Obamacare. Now, what does this mean for us? And of course, you know, we always want to be in a position of not politicizing autism, right? I think it's really important for all of us to have whatever political viewpoints we have, but for us to talk about what it actually means for our individual children. And I talked to some insurance experts, some autism insurance experts this morning who said, well, it means that nothing is different today than it was yesterday. And I said, oh, okay, so there's nothing of import there. And but what was in the ensuing conversation, I said, but here's what we need to talk about, that it means that as of 2014, it will still be that if nothing else changes, right? Because anything could change at any point. But according to the Act as it is in this moment in time, there are a couple of important things that affect autism. One being that autism will no longer be a pre-existing condition that you could be disqualified for, which is in and of itself something that's very important to some families, right? It doesn't affect everyone, but if it did affect you, it would affect you greatly, right? Especially with all this insurance reform coming. But even more important than that, as more states have been getting insurance reform on the board, and we've been talking to you guys about, well, if you have insurance reform in your state, then in all likelihood, you're going to be able to get access to affordable ABA care, behavioral health care. But some of you have self-funded plans, and in those self-funded plans, it means that you're excluded because those state laws aren't covering self-funded plans. For my husband's health insurance, that is certainly the case, even though in just a couple of days, insurance reform is going to be legal in the state of California. Under my husband's health care, my son is not covered, which is a huge, huge bummer, right? But my understanding as of this morning, which I don't think I knew until this morning, is that with the Affordable Care Act, as of 2014, January 1st of 2014, that is wiped out. That in order for plans to qualify for essential services, and it is written right into essential services, which is nothing short of miraculous, and I know that a lot of people lobbied really hard for it to be included in essential services. It is in there for there to be behavioral support, things like ABA, really going to be crucial for all our kids. And I knew that that was in there, right? I just didn't know that it was going to make it so that self-funded plans could no longer just choose not to participate in that. If they do, they will not be a choice that saves somebody from getting the fine. So employers are going to have to change those plans. It only makes sense. And that was exciting news to me this morning. So I want to convey that to all of you, that if the Healthcare Act stands as it currently is, that as of January 1st, 2014, then any healthcare plan will no longer all of the healthcare plans are going to have to get an alignment so that we don't have exclusions, which means that all of our kids should be eligible to get ABA through their insurance, unless, of course, you as a person decide that you don't want to take the insurance, and then you would have to pay a tax to the IRS for that. That was what was being determined this morning, whether that was constitutional, and that part was upheld. You can have whatever feelings that you have about that, and I'm sure that everybody has a wide variety of feelings, but I want everybody to know that part of this is that if it continues, and lots of things could happen between now and January 1st of 2014, but if nothing else changes, then more of our kids are going to have access to ABA. So we definitely wanted to report about that. And not only that, my understanding of it is, and I'm hoping to get an insurance expert in here tomorrow morning, but there are some gap funding programs, insurance programs that people could buy into in the interim between now and 2014, depending on your state and depending on what your circumstances are, that there were things that you could opt in and participate in that would bridge the gap between now and 2014. And my understanding is that there are some people who are already getting services because they have that insurance, and that all is still intact this morning because of the Supreme Court's decision, and was in jeopardy of not being intact if the Supreme Court had overturned it. So, you know, I I leave it to all of you to decide how you feel about that, but this is what we know as of this morning. Again, I am not an insurance expert, but I'm hoping to have one with us tomorrow morning. So stay tuned. But there has been an impact on the autism community, or let's say that there is a lack of impact. It is the same as it was yesterday, which is very exciting to me that in 2014, more of our children are going to have access to ABA. All right, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to give the generalization tip of the week. Stick with us.
Here I stand, a man, someone who has overcome struggles, someone who has endured perceptions of what others thought of him, thinking he was stupid because he was autistic, or simply believing him to be nothing because he was different to them in their minds. But I stood my ground. I just wanted to say to the organization in general, alongside helping me to improve communicatively and socially, the other greatest gifts you gave me were the value of discipline and a good work ethic. To quote Anthony Kiedis, to celebrate you is greater now that I can. You helped me to realize that the harder you work, the likelier you are to achieve success. Having had to work very, very hard to recover from autism, this discipline has continued to serve me well. I also realized that you taught me a lot about and instilled within me a quality of having compassion and sympathy for other people. That you will be concerned more with the needs and wishes of others than with your own is something that I'm awe of, and I constantly strive to be. And in closing, the only way I can sum up CARD, all of you, is love. Everything you do to help families in need, you do out of the sheer love of wanting to make a positive difference in people's lives. And as I stand here before you as a mature adult, I have to say that I'm extremely grateful for your unwavering loving commitments to helping others and me recover from potential life roadblocks and become active and contributing members of society. While I can't overcome obstacles without a will, I cannot have a will without the love of those supporting me. And without love, I am nothing. Thanks again so very much for your love, everything that you've done and continue to do. Please give my best wishes to your families, everybody else with CARD who isn't here, and especially all of your clients and their kids. I'm confident that they too will be able to overcome, and I know that they'll be successful with what they do as long as they continue to put their minds, hearts, passions, and best efforts into it. Enough said.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It's time for the generalization tip of the week, and something got said the other day, and it was one of those light bulb moments for me, because we talk about generalization all the time, but I think it was Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, who was on with us last Friday, who said, you know, well, when we're using ABA, what we're really trying to do, and and he filled in the blank, and it was like, what? Because he said it was a big long sentence, and I can't paraphrase him because he was brilliant, but the things I took away from it, because I know we're always striving for generalization, right? And generalization is something we talk about on the show, that we got to plan for it from the very first time you start to introduce a new skill to a child. Generalization is when the child has learned the skill to a point that they can apply the knowledge and the ability to do the skill in new and novel situations. Because we can't teach something to someone in the millions and myriads of different ways that we would have to teach it in every single instance. So we want the child to take on skills and then be able to apply them in all different areas of life. Think about everything that you do in life, and all the new things that you do, or a circumstance comes up and you have to figure out what to do that you have never done in this particular instance before. And it can be something as simple as, walking into a new bathroom in a new building, and you know how to use a bathroom in a new building, right? Because you know how to use a bathroom. Well, we can't take that kind of thing for granted for our kids. And there are many of you who are out there who have written in and said, yeah, we did the toileting, my child is toileted, but for our bathroom. And we go to another bathroom and the child doesn't know how to release their bowels. So really important, in that circumstance, that we work towards generalization, but think about everything. When we're teaching colors, you cannot teach every shade of blue, right? but you want to teach blue in such a way that a child understands that it's not just one royal blue square, that they see that there are, light blue and dark blue and different hues of blue, and some are shiny and some are matte, but they look at it and go, but that's still blue, and everything in between. It's just amazing the amount of stuff that we want our children to generalize, but we've got to plan for it from step one, and we talk about that all the time. But then Dr. Tarbox was saying that we also want to teach things in a way, we make things reinforcing, and we manipulate the environment in order to make something reinforcing so the child begins to get the skill. But our end goal always is that the child finds things in the natural environment reinforcing enough at some point to maintain that skill. And I heard Angel sing, I was like, whoa, this is the part that we have not been talking about. So not only are we trying to get the child to generalize the skill, but we want for it to be reinforcing in and of itself in the natural environment. That we want socially mediated things to be reinforcing to the child, and even when those things are not overt and not there, because when a child says something and everybody in their class, laughs and goes, great, we want that to be reinforcing, and in the beginning it's not going to be for most of our kids, right? So that's really overt, it's evident, but we want it to be reinforcing for the child to maintain these skills, even when somebody isn't there cheering, to find it personally rewarding. And honestly, isn't that what we all want for ourselves with different things that we're trying to do? I mean, the example that I use for myself all the time is that I should be working out every day. And I know I should. I logically know that I should. I know that it feels good for me after a period of time, after a couple of days. There's the rub. And yet I can get past that couple of days and get to the point where working out feels good, but it's still hard for me to maintain it. And anytime we want to maintain a skill, we have to make it reinforcing, right? But we want to be working towards generalization, being able to apply what we have learned in different and novel situations, right? And also to be working in a way that eventually that whatever the skill is will feed on itself and be reinforcing enough to maintain itself. Right? Not the easiest thing, right? But when you look at something that way, we should be able, if we work hard enough, to be able to find ways to make that happen if we prioritize it enough. And when we think about our kids, they didn't learn in the neurotypical way. For a typically developing child, when they didn't know how to speak when they came out of the womb either, right? But they learned and they watched and they put two and two together and they did approximations, they made noise, and mom went, oh, baby's giggling, and they found that reinforcing. And so they continued to work on it, and mom and dad and grandma and aunts and uncles praised them for it, and they found that reinforcing, and they got better and they got better and they got better, and they continued to acquire language. For a lot of our kids, that whole chain broke down. Maybe they didn't find it reinforcing to look at mom's face smiling, because not everybody finds that reinforcing to begin with. We can make it reinforcing when we pair it with other things. We can, if the child is not responding to people, they're responding to things, then we pair the thing with the people, and we pair the thing with the person's face, and eventually children, we know this, will find the face reinforcing. Sometimes they find it very reinforcing, sometimes they're just going to find it slightly reinforcing. But we know that if we pair things long enough with things that are already reinforcing, it's going to be helpful and useful, right? But so I just wanted to go over what the overreaching arc is that we're trying to do. It's not just about sitting and drilling a child and having them be able to mimic a skill. That's not what it's about. It's about making it reinforcing for them enough so that they're learning it and making it an experience in which they're learning it in enough different ways that they make that leap on their own. They make that leap into that that unknown and try it in a new and novel circumstance, and eventually find that reinforcing enough that they keep on. We turn them into sponges where it's exciting for them to learn. Imagine being able to make that a reality in your child's life, to make learning reinforcing, learning new things, trying new things, potentially failing and moving on, and keep on trying, reinforcing for a child. What would be possible if you could do that for your child at home? And you can. That's what this tool belt is all about. But it takes a plan. You got to have a plan. You can't just attack this willy-nilly and hope for the best. That's what happened with the neurotypical kids. You didn't have to have a plan. It just happened. It's one of those things that I always talk about, the fact that until I had a child who stopped acquiring language and lost language, I didn't realize how miraculous it is when a child makes all those connections and acquires language. I get it now because we had to work for it, and we had to plan for it, and we had to drill it, and we had to reinforce it and reward it. And it was constantly a thing that was ongoing. But you know what? We still got there. And that is the most important thing, getting there. Yeah, it's hard work. And yeah, it's exhausting. But what are our alternatives? We're going to give up? No. It's not an option. So what I want you to know today is that do the work. Do the work. It's worth it. You're worth it. Your child's worth it. Okay, we have to take a break. We're going to watch The A Word. This is a wonderful documentary that's being made at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy who's doing the work. And the parents are doing the work. And you can see how beneficial it is. Now, this week's episode, he's got a new baby sister who just came home, and he's out of sorts. He's not loving it, so it's more work this week. But what's the alternative? The therapist and the family, they're going to keep doing it and making it reinforcing for him to comply when they ask him to comply, getting him on track and reminding him how awesome it is when you're complying. Because when we have compliance, we can teach. We're going to watch The A Word, and then when we come back, we are going to be joined by Denise Rhine, who is the managing supervisor of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, Rochester, New York office. So take a look at The A Word, and we'll be back in just a few minutes with Denise Rhine.
You were over this. We did this like 5 months ago. I know, that's you. Hi, look.
Hi, look.
You can say hi.
Hi.
Say, I'm Jack Riley.
I Jack Riley. I got. It's showtime.
It's showtime.
Sit down. I can eat.
Look what I have. Do you want to play with your rug?
The rug.
Whoa, you want to play?
Go
Okay,
play,
then
go
you need
play.
to get your stickers. Do you want the rug?
What's the rug?
Okay, you need to sit here. No, you need to sit right here. Sit down. Sit right here. You need to sit here, buddy. No. Or else we have to go sit on the chair, bud. Come on. Sit up. Okay. You're gonna sit on the chair then, dude. Ready? Clap your hands. Good. See, that's one sticker. Touch your head. There it is. You have to sit on chair, There you go. Thank you. You got one sticker for that. High fives. Very good. What do you want after the one sticker? iPhone. Okay. Let's see. Touch your back. Very good. See? You got it. High fives. I'll get it for you, okay? Cool. He's been having a lot of non-compliance lately with the other girls too. Some Most of our session might be compliance training today. It's basically asking him to do things he already does know, so he's successful. Just to get their focus back, by asking them to do things that they already do know, it kind of shifts their focus back on something else. And then I just bring in what I originally asked was to sit in the chair. And he was able to do it. I don't know if it's just, you know, his baby sister or just, it's just been lately. Okay, my turn. Okay, we're gonna get 5 stickers again. What do you want to do?
iPhone.
More iPhone? Okay, sure. Okay, ready? Stand up. Good job. Here's 1 sticker. Clap your hands. Good job. Touch your nose. Where's your nose? Good job. Touch your ears. Nice. 1 more. Sit down. Nice. Very good. Here you go. So I'll do that just a couple times, just to get him back in the groove of things. Get back. What are you doing?
Pooping.
You're pooping? Oh, okay. You going potty?
Going to party.
Are you going poo-poo?
I'll go to a party. You're poo-poo.
You have poo-poo in your diaper?
Pooping your diapers.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry, are you pooping? Oh, maybe he is. Okay. Are you all done? Okay. One more minute to go poop. Yeah. Yeah, and then we're gonna get your dad, okay? Okay, we're gonna go see Daddy. Okay? And go show Daddy to say, Daddy, I pooped.
Daddy,
Go find Daddy. Or she's just doing it. No? Yeah. Yay! You said you pooped and you did!
You pooped, huh?
Yay!
That's really good. I'm really proud of you. Look at me. I'm really proud of you.
You're gonna be a star. You're gonna be a superstar. She was very fussy until right this second. That's Big Brother's girlfriend.
How are they doing together?
He mostly ignores her. Although he did have a little monologue yesterday where out of the blue he said, "Bless you, Lainey Grace." And then he said a few other things about her too.
I love you, Lainey Grace.
I love you, Lainey Grace.
Oh, that's sweet.
And he'll kiss her head and thinks that's funny because, of course, Mommy gives her big reactions to his kisses. She says, "Ooh, I like that kiss." So he likes to do it like 45 times. But most of the time, if you ask him what his sister's name is or anything about his sister, he pretends like he didn't hear you, which is fine. We're not in a hurry.
Jealousy to work out on, I think.
And we are very careful if he wants me to, whoever's got her, if he tries to get our attention or whatever. If we can, we give it to him. There's going to be plenty of times where we can't, so we're trying not to have her be the reason we have to say no. For now.
Success. It's been an eventful 1 hour since we've been here.
Exciting.
I know.
Jam-packed. This is going to be an exciting episode added. There's baby, there's pooping, there's tantruming, there's
Yes!
everything.
Only the first hour, Suzanne.
I
See what
know.
the second hour will bring us.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting, to you right now from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. And we're going to be joined right now by our special guest, Denise Rhine from Rochester, New York. I want to remind you at home that if you're watching us live on autism-live.com, you can be typing in questions for me to ask Denise. Just go to the question box, type in, hit enter, and it will pop up. If you're watching this on any other format or it says rebroadcast, you can simply email us your questions, and even though we're just talking to Denise during this time, we know where she works. We can contact her. So there's the email address. You can be writing us right now or in the future with any questions that you have. But if you're watching on autism-live.com and it says live, type it right into the question box. So Denise, are you there?
Yes, I am, Shannon.
There she is. Wonderful. It's so great to have you here. Thank you for taking the time because I know that you're really busy.
Well, thanks for having me.
And we should start by saying you have a really exciting event happening right outside your office window, correct?
We do. Hopefully it won't be too loud. The Great American Car Race is going through the village of Fairport right now, and they're blowing sirens as the cars go through, and there's marching bands out there, and the engines are really loud.
Okay, so we just want people to know that you're not having a fireworks display, but you're having a community event. What could be better than that?
Exactly.
Wonderful. So that's what the noise in the background there at your office is. But in any case, tell us a little bit about, you're in the Rochester office of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. What is your position there?
I'm the Senior Managing Supervisor of the office here.
And what does that mean?
Well, I supervise over the special education teachers and the speech pathologists and the teaching assistants and the administrative staff that are here, as well as I have my own caseload of clients that I go out and service, from early intervention up to 21 years old is my oldest client.
Wow. So if there's a family in the upstate New York area that's looking for services and they call your office, it's very likely that at some point they're going to have an opportunity to meet you?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
All right.
I go out and meet with all new potential new clients. I field the majority of the phone calls here in the office when people are calling for questions about services here in Rochester, about looking for dentists or looking for people to cut their hair or anything like that that's needed in the area.
So you're a huge resource for that area then, upstate New York.
We try.
Okay, wonderful. And you guys have a pretty unique office there in Rochester. Tell us a little bit about, I know that you guys in particular have a speech and language pathologist that's on staff, correct?
We have 4 actually on staff.
Wow.
We are the only CARD office that does have speech language pathologists on staff, which does make us a bit different. And many of our speech pathologists are also trained in a different type of therapy called prompt. It's a physical manipulation of the mouth to try and get kids to be able to produce other sounds if they're apraxic. So that's something that's definitely different about us compared to the other offices in CARD. And I think it adds a lot to our program to be able to have speech pathologists here looking at the oral motor difficulties that many children with autism have.
Yeah, we just had Arthur Fleshman on the show a week ago, co-author of the book Carly's Voice, and we talked a little bit about apraxia when he was here. But for people who are just tuning in, tell us a little bit about what apraxia is so that they can understand.
Oh, I'll do my darndest, but I'm not a speech-language pathologist.
Absolutely, we understand that.
So my basic understanding of it is that the children or the people have a difficult time getting their mouth to produce their oral motor movements the way that they need to be able to make sounds.
Yeah, I think it's a really important distinction for people to make, that, you know, people can want to make the sound, but that message isn't coming from the brain to the actual motor for whatever reason. Is that correct?
That's my basic understanding, yes.
Okay. Because, you know, we see in a lot of instances of kids who are wanting to communicate, but that connection isn't happening. So wonderful that you have people that are really experienced to help children with this particular disorder, apraxia. And I'm wondering, because, you know, I always like to know what autism is like in different parts of the world, because it's fascinating to me that there's a part of my mommy brain that thinks that it should be the same everywhere. And apparently I'm crazy because it isn't, but I think it should be. But funding is different in different parts of our country, state to state, and of course it's different overseas. What are some of the biggest challenges that face families who have a child with autism in upstate New York?
Well, I want to go back quickly to what you said first about autism being so different. It made me remember when Dr. Graham Pichet, the founder of CARD, came out to Rochester. She actually said that each office, the kids present so much differently, but there's one common characteristic that seems a little bit more pronounced in each office. Here, she said it's eye contact. Eye contact's a little bit more tough, she said, here in Rochester, which I found interesting to hear from her. But the biggest challenges I feel that our families find around here is creating a support system outside of our treatment team, more of a personal support system. I hear very frequently that the families, they're losing their friends, they aren't able to go out as much, finding babysitters to be able to go out. The respite care system here is, it's very hard to find respite workers to help babysit the children on the spectrum. So the parents have a rough time.
Yeah, we were talking during the break that I was out in New York in April. I didn't make it into your office, and I wish that I had, but I hope that I get to soon. But I was in Oswego, New York, which is my alma mater, and I actually had taught there. And I just happened to connect with some people in Oswego while I was there because they were doing their autism walk. And I was amazed because I had just been to the Los Angeles walk where, it was 35,000 people. It was just this overwhelming thing. And then I went to the Oswego walk, and Oswego is this very small town in upstate New York, and I really didn't expect there to be a lot of people there, but there was a huge outpouring, and I was absolutely amazed. And they have started something called the Oswego Task Force. I got some of their t-shirts. I was very excited because they're trying to create their own network, and I hope that other families there realize that if they use their support together, if they stick together, I think that's when things get done, and that you're a great resource to use as they're getting themselves together in parent support groups.
We do have two support groups here. One's called Unifeed and the other's called MAT. Mm-hmm. They do a great job. But it's just getting the parents to be able to reach out to them and getting the parents to be able to go to their events and to connect with other families. We do our best here in Rochester. We have around the Christmas time, Santa comes here, and all the families can come and they can get pictures taken with Santa because it's difficult sometimes for our families to go to the mall and get that done. Around Halloween, they come trick-or-treating here at our office because our office is set up perfectly for them to go door to door to practice social skills and to be able to actually get some things that might be gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free, depending on what's going on with the children's diets and all that. So we do some things where families can get together, but it's just they need much more.
Okay. All right. Good to know. But also to let people know that resources are there that maybe aren't being utilized as fully as they could be. I know that it's really difficult because you feel like you're alone on this journey, but find your resources, connect. And I imagine if they give you a call that you can help to connect them with Unifeed. And what was the other one that you talked about?
MAT, Managing Autism Treatment Together.
Okay, awesome. And if people want to get a hold of the Rochester office, if they have questions, do they call the 800 number for CARD, or do you have your own phone number for them to call?
They can call either the 800 number, or our number here is 585-377-6590.
I'm going to have you say that again.
Sure, 585-377-6590.
But I also want to remind people, if you go to www.centerforautism.com, you can click on the locations tab on that page and find all of the different CARD offices and all of their individual phone numbers on that page. So if you're in the upstate New York area, clearly you want to touch base with the Rochester office. But if you're anyplace else in the world and you're thinking, why don't we have this here? First check and see, because you might. And then if you don't have it, we're going to be covering in the next couple of weeks that they're opening the new office in Boston, and that came about because parents got together and said, we want this service. How did the Rochester office come to be, Denise?
The Rochester office came to be because I was working downstate in our Westchester office. And I'm from Rochester originally. My husband was getting transferred back to Rochester. And we had about 13 clients up here that had workshop services that we were flying up every couple months to come up and service them. And when I was, when my husband was saying, okay, we really need to leave downstate, we're going back to Rochester, I contacted my boss at the time and begged, please, can we open the office in Rochester? I don't want to leave CARD. And Dr. Graham-Shea allowed that to happen, and we've been here for now 13 years.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, it's that, necessity. You got 13 families already. I'm sure they were thrilled that you were coming to upstate New York.
Yeah.
And that's an amazing 13 years. So you've seen a lot of progress over 13 years.
We have. We've seen a lot here. It's been amazing.
Okay, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to find out how Denise got started in the field of autism, and we might even talk briefly, since today is like a real insurance day, about what's happening with insurance in New York and what kind of changes have happened. Because, Denise, we're at the end of this week, starting next week, California has insurance reform actually taking place, so we'd like to hear about what's been happening with you guys. Maybe we can take some pointers for the transition phase. All right, stick with us. We'll be back in just a minute with more with Denise Rhine.
Mostly the behavior started at night, but it was invading the day, where he would just speak one syllable and babble and pace around.
When she was a year old, she lost speech. She did never seem to request me for anything, even for food. He told me over the phone that I should just put her in an institution. I was devastated. Webster Institution, a hospital. Yeah, isn't that nice?
He told me that it was possible or likely that Ruffin would never be employed, that he would never work productively, that he would not know that I loved him, nor would he love me, nor would he be likely to marry.
There's a 50% chance that he won't be able to talk at all, but if he does talk, he will only be able to, you know, make simple desire requests. I want, things like that. And probably by the time he was 10, he'd be in a home.
Doreen told me that he would recover, and Doreen told me that he would go to regular kindergarten.
I really have a very normal kid now, and lots of normal worries, but not extraordinary ones.
My name is Deli Popola, and I'm one of the creators of theoutspot.com. Theoutspot.com is an online support system for families and specialists who are affected by autism across the whole world. Share inspirational stories, find resources in their area. Hope you can join.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our special guest that's joining us via Skype from Rochester, New York is Denise Rhine. She is the Senior Managing Clinical Supervisor. Have I got it right?
Senior Managing Supervisor.
There we go. For the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, Rochester, New York location. And as I said, she's with us via Skype. Denise, I always like to ask people, whenever I'm talking to them, people who have made this their life, autism, because as a parent, I didn't choose this. I like to be abundantly clear about this. This came to live at my house. I was not invited. And I always look at you guys a little strangely, because I think, why on earth, what brought you, why would you choose to have this be your life? And I'm always fascinated by the answers. So how did you get started in the field of autism?
Well, my first summer from college, I came home and I worked for a state agency called BOCES. And I was a teacher's aide in a classroom that had all children on the autism spectrum. And that was my first exposure ever to autism. And I was, I don't know, I was overtaken by the disorder, and I wanted to find out everything that I could. So every report I did from there on out in college was done on autism. And I got my bachelor's in elementary education and psychology, and then came out of college, moved to Milwaukee, taught for a while, and then I came back to New York, downstate New York, and I was trying to find myself. I was waiting tables, I was working in a mall, you know, all things that my husband said, you have a degree, go to work other places. But at that time, my brother-in-law came to me, and he worked for a man who had a child on the spectrum, and asked me to come and work with their son at home independently. They couldn't offer me enough hours to be able to go and quit my jobs to go work there. So then I researched out the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, which was the agency that was working with this child. And I had 2 job offers on the table. One was with them, and one was with a large museum downstate, and being in charge of 600 children sleeping over. But with the whole autism aspect and me being intrigued with it since 1989, I said I have to go that route. So I have been working for CARD since what, 1996, somewhere around there. and have started off as a therapist and worked my way up to opening the office here in Rochester.
Wow. And so before you went to work for that first child, had you, you'd had exposure to autism, but had you had exposure to ABA?
No, I had not. No, it was before ABA came to Rochester, was my exposure in New York up here during college. And when I came to CARD and got the training, it just all fit perfectly. And I knew that this is what you had to do with children on the autism spectrum to teach them. It just made so much sense.
I find it so interesting, though, when you went into that first classroom with how many kids in the BOCES program when you went in as an intern?
6 children, 1 teacher, and I think there were 3 aides in the class.
And so were they being effective intervening with the kids at that point, or was it a struggle?
Well, being a board-certified behavior analyst and knowing what the research does say about eclectic classrooms or typical special ed classrooms, it's summer school. I didn't see anything effective being done. Being able to engage with the children and get them to allow us to play with them was the progress that I saw for the summer. But academically or socially or cognitively, I didn't see any increase at that time.
What's really striking to me and fascinating to me is that most of the time when I ask people, what brought them into the field of autism, it was that they started, they were taking a class, a psychology class or whatever, and started working with a child with ABA and saw what a difference it could make, and that was what lit their fire. But it sounds like you were just fascinated with the disorder to begin with, but then when ABA came, you saw, okay, these two things go really well together. But I just find that, what was it about autism that was so interesting? Were you hoping to unlock these children? Could you see a glimmer of something in there that you were trying to get at? What really intrigued you?
I was really hoping to get in their head and figure out what was going on and why it was so hard for them to connect with us, why it was so hard for them to learn. That was my big thing. I really wanted to get in their heads. And now doing ABA and having the ability to work with children that have the ability to recover and be at those appointments when some children lose their diagnosis, it's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing.
Absolutely. What do you, out of everything that you've seen in all the years that you've been working, what do you wish that parents knew about autism that they seemingly don't know right now?
For here in Rochester, to be honest with you, I wish that they knew more about CARD. We're here, we've been here, as I said, for 13 years, but we're a bit of a rare agency here. We typically don't see children beginning in early intervention when they start to show just basic delays. So when it comes down to them needing a little bit of special ed, a little bit of speech, we don't see those children because no parent wants to come to a center just to get some speech or just to get some special ed that has the name autism in the diagnosis, because that is what they're hoping doesn't happen. So that's what I wish. I wish we could get out there more and families can find us from the beginning and realize that we can help so many more children. And rather than waiting to get us till the children are 5 or school age or preschool, starting with an agency that specializes in autism when that diagnosis happens immediately is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
That's what I wish for families here.
And I would imagine that because you've got the speech and language pathologist there, that some kids do come to you that don't have an autism spectrum diagnosis, correct?
We try very hard. We do have a couple, but it's still, it's scary, I would think, for families, again, to come to an agency that has autism in the name when you don't have that.
Okay, but they clearly could come to you and get top-of-the-line care for a child who's got a speech delay only.
Shannon, they could come here for special ed services as well, for children who aren't on the spectrum. There's the ability for us to service all different disabilities because of the difference in our office compared to the other offices. Our teachers here are all special ed certified. Our teaching assistants are all certified as a teaching assistant. So we fit the educational model for New York State for early intervention and preschool. So we don't have to just service children on the autism spectrum. We can service children with any disability here.
Which is fabulous. So more people should be taking advantage of that. Talk to me a little bit about funding, because you guys have had insurance reform, and how long is it? It's only been a couple of months that you've had it actually on the books, correct? Or am I'm a year off?
You're a year off.
Okay.
It is supposed to be in all the plans by November 1st is what's supposed to happen.
Oh, so it hasn't happened yet?
No.
Oh,
no, it's passed. It's passed. But it doesn't kick in until November 1st is when it has to be in all the plans. So we're thinking things will hit come January. For our autism insurance kids.
All right, so the way it is right now, because we have regional centers here that have been in California that have been providing some funding, but they're essentially out of money. You have something that's closely related to the regional centers, correct?
We do. That's our counties, which are linked to the Department of Health. Our counties for birth to 3 years old, they govern the IFSPs, the individual family service plans, and they fund the services. When a child moves to the 3 to 5 system, which is called preschool, the school districts govern their individual education plans, but the county still pays for them. So the county holds the purse strings from birth to 5 years old.
Okay. And are the counties still funding? Do they still have money, or are you faring a little bit better than the California Regional Center?
The counties still have money, and crossing my fingers that it continues that way.
Yeah.
They do still have money, and they are following as close as they can the Autism Task Force guidelines that I sat in on with a group of other people a couple years ago when we wrote the guidelines to autism services. And many of our children, if they are affected severely from autism, still have the ability to get up to 30 hours of services. That includes speech and OT and PT and team meeting times. But there's the ability for children from birth to 5 to be able to receive as high as 30 hours of services per week.
Okay, now that's if they've got an autism diagnosis, correct?
Yes. Autism, PDD, NOS, Asperger's.
Okay.
It truly depends on their functioning level, and where their IQ lays is really one of the big issues here in Rochester.
Okay, and in New York State, they could come to you to get an assessment, but they can also get an assessment from the county health office. Is that correct?
We don't do assessments here in Rochester unless the assessment team from California flies out.
Okay.
That can happen, but that's rare.
Okay.
The county does, in early intervention, does pay for assessments for diagnosis, and then in preschool, the teams that they associate with for testing for services, not for diagnosis, that they can have testing done to see if they qualify for services. But for diagnoses, they typically go to a developmental pediatrician here in Monroe County.
Okay. And if they get that, looking at whether they qualify for services, is that free to the families?
Yes. It is.
And so if you've got a child that you suspect has autism in the upstate New York area, then you need to call the county office and schedule an appointment to come in and be assessed for services. And if you do qualify for services, you can get up to 30 hours free at this point in time.
Depending on the scores on the assessments, yes.
Okay. If, though, somebody's got a child who only has a speech delay or has other special education needs, what's the process for them to be able to get funding to have your services?
For someone that's not on the spectrum?
Yes.
In early intervention, the families are able to choose whatever agency they would like to work with.
Okay.
So early intervention, they can choose to come with CARD. In preschool, the school district ultimately determines what agency that the children are going to work with. So it's a discussion at their preschool special ed meeting.
Because I just want to bring home, and I know we have a global audience, but there are so many people who are sitting there. We asked them earlier this week, what is preventing you from getting the proper amount of ABA therapy? And so many people wrote back and said access, but overwhelmingly it was funding. And I said, I remember as a parent on my first day that I was afraid to ask, because I was afraid that either there were not going to be services that were going to be helpful to my son, or, and equally scary to me, was that there was going to be something that would help my son, but I wasn't going to be able to afford it. And I think that a lot of parents don't even ask the question because we're terrified. I think that it's an ultimate failure of, oh, there is something, but I can't afford it. Really is an emotional thing. But I need for people to know that in a lot of instances, it's there, it's waiting, it's available to you, you can get it for free. So don't not ask the question is the thing. And I understand it because I was afraid too, but you got to ask the question because sometimes the answer is there. And I imagine from what you're saying, you could be servicing more children, correct?
We could be servicing more children, absolutely. Back off of what you were just saying, I had a meeting just the other day, a phone call with a woman here within a funding agency, and I was asking to increase this child's hours due to this child being kicked out of his playgroup that he was going to because he was biting people, and because his learning rate was very slow. So I was asking for more hours for the student to be able to get him engaged more hours of the day. After being able to get it approved, the woman said to me, Denise, I feel really bad that you have to fight for your services all the time. And I said to her, you know what, I don't see it as fighting. I see it as a time to educate people as to the therapy that we do and what it can do for children, and therefore allowing us to help the kids and be able to help more children once the funding agencies know more about us and that they know what we can actually do for the children. I actually enjoy those funding conversations when it comes down to educating people on the research that's out there on what we can do for children.
Well, awesome. And it brings me to the point that we talked a little bit before about you've seen tremendous progress. For families that are, and we're going to try to push to get as many people in the upstate New York area to see this as possible. Right. What kinds of progress have you been able to see? All of our kids are different, and they're all going to make different kinds of progress, but they all make progress, right?
Absolutely, they all make progress. Some make progress only in some of their fine motor and gross motor skills and their self-help skills. Other children learn a communication system and can communicate through icons or through another augmentative communication device. Others have the ability to be able to go to a general ed classroom and be able to participate with an aide. Others, the other percentage, have the ability to recover and be able to no longer have the diagnosis and people not have to know that they've ever had autism and be able to get out there and function like other neurotypical people can do. And any progress is amazing. One of the moms just said to me the other day that their child just said for the first time, I love you, to her, and he has very limited speech and he's mostly echolalic, and he turned to her in the grocery store and said, I love you. It was, brought tears to my eyes. I've been doing this 16 years, 13 years here, and every time a parent says that to me, my heart is overjoyed with the help that we can do.
It's absolutely huge. And I have to ask you this, but there is no way to tell on the first day who's going to make which progress in which category, right?
No, there is no way. No.
But the fact that there's progress for everybody, I know I get all up in arms when people say, well, some of the kids just don't make as much progress. Like they only get toilet training. And I think, toilet training is huge. Right. Or being able to speak and use an assistive device. For families, that's a huge, huge difference. That's tremendous progress.
It's amazing. And for the people who say that ABA doesn't work for children over 7, that's silly as well.
Yeah, because if families have, our big topic for this entire week is EIBI. And we keep saying, the early stands for now, whatever age you are. So, for families who have an 8-year-old and they didn't hear about ABA till now, they can still come to you and get support and services and see progress with their child, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Denise, I think that you're doing a remarkable job, and I thank you so much. And, you know, I am from upstate New York, and so it's a place that's very near and dear to me. And I know that there are families who need this information and need the help and support that you are there to provide. So let's tell them the phone number one more time before we leave.
Sure, it's 585-377-6590.
And I want to remind everybody, go to www.centerforautism.com, click the locations tab. If you're in the upstate New York area, you're going to find the Rochester office, but wherever you are in the world, you should look and see how close you are to a CARD office. If you're not close to a CARD office, get together with your local support group, and if there are a group of parents there who want a CARD office, all you have to do is let them know. They want to be where they're wanted, where families can use them. So Denise, thank you so much. Please give our best to everybody there in the Rochester area. We hope you enjoy your great race.
Great, thanks.
And have a lovely holiday weekend next week.
Thanks for having me on, Shannon. You too.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye. So that was Denise Rhine in the Rochester office for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, Rochester, New York, we should specify. And I just get so overwhelmed when I think about so many families that are out there who aren't getting help and don't know that help is available. If you're one of those families, please raise your hand and ask, because there is help that is available for so many of you. Even the funding is available for you. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back and look at your answers to the question of the day. Stick with us.
I'm Adele Nadowski, Director and Co-Creator of Skills. CARD e-learning is an online tool that has been developed by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD e-learning is the training that is delivered to the ABA therapists at CARD to train them on the principles of applied behavior analysis and to equip them with the knowledge they need to essentially deliver the ABA-based techniques during their therapy with the children that they work with. ABA has been proven scientifically to be the most effective intervention for children with autism. At this point, even the Surgeon General has come out with a statement suggesting just that. So we know that this is something that children with autism definitely need if they're going to improve and live the lives that we're hoping that they're going to be able to live. By being able to train people on this one particular method that we know works, and to be able to have all of your staff within your school settings on the same page, it allows you to take more of a multidisciplinary approach, and there's definite consistency going on within the team. It makes sure that every person involved with that child's treatment program, including the speech and language pathologist, the occupational therapist, the teachers, the aides, all of these individuals to be able to be trained so that they can all work together effectively with the child. Parents that are using CARD e-learning can use it either to train themselves, and then after having done that they can implement different techniques with their child in order to teach new skills. But oftentimes parents might also be working either with an ABA provider, with a school, or they may have even hired their own therapist to deliver the intervention techniques. So CARD e-learning can be used either to collaborate with your school. It can also be used to train the therapists that are coming to the home of the parents, or it can also be shared with the ABA provider so that that provider can find out about it and perhaps implement it within their organization and train their staff. You can also do reporting for your organization. So you can actually look and find out which teachers are progressing, what their quiz scores are, and actually we can give you reports as well that will help you to compare the different teachers and their performances. CARD e-learning is really, really simple to use. You can log on to this as long as you have a computer, that's all you need, and an internet connection. And you can work on it any time of the day, anywhere that you're at. When you log on, you realize that right away. First of all, on the top of the page, there's a navigational tutorial. It's a how to use this page button. Simply by watching that video, it'll all kind of unfold in front of you, and it becomes extremely self-explanatory. CARD e-learning has 9 modules, and you can basically go through those at your own pace. You're going to be watching videos that are kind of like a storyboard with narration, but in addition to that, there's many different video clips of therapists actually implementing the techniques that are being described within the storyboard that you can also watch. And then of course you're able to pause, you're able to type notes right directly underneath the video that you're watching. You can save your notes, you can review them, and between each module you do take a quiz, and once you pass that quiz you can go on to the next module. And then after you complete all of them, you have a final exam. And by completing the final exam and passing with a score of 85% or better, you will be given a certificate of completion. Let me show you how easy it is to use CARD e-learning.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It's that time of day when we take a minute to look at the question of the day and what your answers are. We had a different, because sometimes we have to change it up and be different here. And the question of the day was, if you could invite any 3 people to dinner, who would you invite and why? I didn't really think about it before I said, but I said I would invite Temple Grandin, that I would invite Bono from U2, and David Letterman for different reasons. And wouldn't that be an interesting dinner party, though? Really, wouldn't it? Wouldn't you all want to be there? And interesting, the conversation would be endless, right? I love some of the responses that you guys put here. One person who put God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, because I need him, bless you. Somebody who said 3 people who could keep my son from throwing tantrums. I know 3 people who could help with that. Stick around, because we've got people who can help with that. Another person who says, I will invite the woman teacher of my son, my social worker who helps me, and my son, and the lady in charge of my church. Very nice. That seems like very doable. Another person who said, my grandfather who passed away when I was 3, Bruce Springsteen, and God. Now there would be an interesting dinner party, don't you think? A lot of people who said Temple Grandin. Another person who said, I would invite Thomas Jefferson, Albert Einstein, and Mark Twain, and talk of what their upbringing was. I would like to see how I can improve my child's future through their true experiences. That would certainly be an interesting dinner party. Another person who said, I would invite Temple Grandin. She's very inspiring for help with my son. Hillary Clinton, because she has an interest in the disabled and that she could learn more about autism and disabilities. And the last, John Cena, for my son, because he is John's biggest fan and it would be the best surprise in the world for my son. I think that's absolutely lovely. We did not yet have a chance to look at yesterday's question of the day. I always look in the wrong place, which was, I don't even see it because now with this new timeline on Facebook, it is too confusing for moi. Yeah, I know it's here somewhere. In any case, one of the things that I wanted to also remind you guys, if you're on Facebook today, if you're a part of our community and you're dealing with oh, here's a question that was not our question of the day, but one that we haven't looked at. That's there. Well, there's a bunch of things that we haven't looked at. Oh, I'm seeing all kinds of things. But in any case, some sad news to report that a part of our community, Tom Hibben, who is the dad blogger who writes Adventures in Asperger's, Tom Hibben, he's been on this show twice, and we just adore him. He's just one of those dad warriors that I have so much respect for. He was a paramedic and left that field because it meant too much time away, because they work those really long days. Meant too much time away from his family. He's got 3 boys, one of them on the spectrum, and he needed to be home more. And he and his wife had started a photography business, and we've had them on before. They do beautiful, beautiful pictures. But Tom also blogs and shares his experience, and it's hopeful and it's wonderful. And he's just one of those people that always finds the time to laugh and share and be compassionate and considerate. And somebody who was really working working hard to make this journey work for his family. And we understand that they lost their family home and all of their possessions, including their photography equipment, in a fire yesterday. Just devastating. So want to remind you that there is the Hibben Fire Fund, HIBBEN, on fundraiser.com. I encourage you to go there, share. More than anything else, I want you to share it. I know that our community is, we tend to be strapped. If you have $1 to give, and I hope that you do, and I hope that you have more to give, but if you have $1 to give, I know that it means something to this family and will help them. Look, if we all gave $1, it would be an amazing thing, right? So if you have $1 to give, please participate. This family is the real deal. If you have more to give, great. But even if you don't have $1 to give, and today is your worst day, and your child is tantruming, and you're saying, okay, you know, my day is really stinking rough right now, but I still have a roof over my head, and that's more than this family has, then share. Take your message, take your Facebook, put this message, you can go to this place, thefundraiser.com, and you can hit share and share it on your Facebook, and maybe you have friends that will give $1. It makes a difference in their lives, and more than anything, I think we all want for this family to feel the support of our community. This is one of our family. And if you just think for a second, with everything that you have going on today, right, it really puts it in perspective. If you were to lose absolutely everything, yep, fortunately, you know, as far as we're aware, everybody is okay. Right? Because it could be worse. It could always be worse. But imagine having to deal with all the things that you have to deal with today, and then on top of that, losing all your possessions and your ability to maintain your business. We'll be in a state of gratitude. I like to say that, you know, in life, stuff happens, right? We all know what kind of stuff. And it happens to good people sometimes. We're familiar with that because autism came to live at our house. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I struggle to make sense of all of it. And the only thing that makes sense to me is that, you know, sometimes you're the lesson, and sometimes when you're not the lesson, it's important that you learn. And that's what I try to remember. And I heard this about Tom's family this morning, and my immediate thought was, you know, I want to be helpful in any way that I can, but you know, what do I need to learn from this? And my next thought, which I'd like to share with all of you, is that it's time to do a fire drill. It's time to do a fire drill in our homes. That, you know, we need to do these on a regular basis. Today's a good day to do a fire drill. It's a good day to do an earthquake drill or whatever, to run through, not just talk about it, right? But to physically motor our kids through, what do we do if there is a fire? What, you know, what window can we go out of if we can't get downstairs? I think it's important to do these things at different times in different parts of the house. So today, maybe you do the fire drill and you do a practice thing and you say, we're all going to pretend that we're in bed asleep, and we're going to pretend that the fire alarm went off or that somebody yelled fire. What do we do if we're asleep? And follow it all the way through. It's not enough. Sometimes, you know, life is busy and we try to cut corners, but follow it all the way through to getting out onto the street so that your child has that physical memory of, this is what I do. Because keep in mind, in the middle of the night, it's going to be dark, it's confusing, you're half asleep, but your body retains some memory. We rehearse all kinds of things in life. We should be rehearsing fire drills. Let's all make sure that our families are safe, and take whatever measures, whether it's insurance or whatever it is, and let's make sure that we learn from this, because this could happen to any of us, right? My thoughts are with Tom and his family today, and we want to send them love and support and funds, because clearly they're going to need that. But I think that the love and support are as important as anything else. I'm just seeing that we have all of these different questions questions. The question of the day that was several days ago that I don't remember doing the answers to these, what's your child's favorite toy? And I'm seeing Power Rangers, iPad, VTech camera, oh, the flat and wrinkled old McDonald's straw. I do remember seeing that one because I was like, that is fascinating. And other people wrote in and said, oh, yes, my child's into that too. I do not know why I cannot find... here it is. Here it is. Yesterday's question of the day. What has your family had to sacrifice since your child was diagnosed with ASD? Somebody who wrote in and said, I can't go grocery shopping whenever I want anymore and take my son. It is too much for him. I have to have Grammy watch him while I go. Then I usually get only half done, so I get back home to him. There is a lot I can't do anymore. Can't get our hair cut when we want, can't shop, can't go out to dinner. But I really don't consider it a sacrifice. I wouldn't have it any other way. I love being with my beautiful son. And you know, those things are very much a reality, and I so appreciate you writing those things in, because for a period of time we might have to sacrifice those things and say, you know, I just can't go to the grocery store by myself. I just can't get my hair cut. I certainly would tell you that I went a long period of time, I want to say 3 years, cutting my own hair. There wasn't money in the budget for it. I didn't have the time to go. I didn't have some place to leave my son. I didn't want to take time away from therapy for me to go get my hair cut and take him. But I hope that as we talk about these sacrifices, that you're making these sacrifices all towards getting your child the help that you need, so that someday you can go and get your hair cut again, and someday you can take your child back in the grocery store again, because you can. You can. And someday you can go out to dinner. These are all skills that we can learn. And I know eventually I did say, when there was money in the budget, you know, we're taking therapy to the hairdresser, and to see how to wait and entertain yourself while you're sitting waiting when mom gets the hair done, because that's a fact of life. And if I had had a child who was not on the spectrum, there would have come a day when he could have done that. And so we worked on that, and he can do that. Yeah, I prefer not to take him when I don't have to. And there are people that I can, you know, he could be home with dad and I can go get my hair cut now. But yeah, there was a good 3 years when I was in the bathroom with the scissors. I have pictures to show. I'll show them sometime to prove it wasn't good. I do not have good hair cutting skills. Most people don't when they're cutting their own hair. But you know what? You do what you have to do, right? Another person, in terms of sacrifices, says finances. Yeah. I was saying yesterday, we just kissed financial freedom goodbye and watched it go tweet, tweet, tweet. Into the horizon. See ya. I hope to someday see that again. But you know what? It was worth it. It was absolutely worth it. Friendships. Yeah, sometimes friendships go by the wayside. There were a lot of people that wanted me to do a lot of things when my son was diagnosed that I said no to. And some people I didn't even respond. I didn't even have the time. And I lost some friends over it. I have to be honest. There were some people that when they found out went, oh my gosh, of course you didn't call me back. Of course. And other people who went, well, you know, I don't have time anymore. And you know what? That's okay, because if there were people who were going to leave the friendship over things like that, then guess what? We were going to lose the friendship over something else further down the road. You know, it's one of those things you go, well, you separate the wheat from the chaff, or the chaff, as they say. Relationships, sometimes spontaneity, certainly. Whew. Relaxation, absolutely. Somebody else who said, sacrificing dreams of an independent life for my son. I hope that you're with us, that you're hearing this, that there is progress. That there is progress. Yep, there are some kids who are still going to continue to need support up through the rest of their life, especially if they have a multiple diagnosis. But even those children can make progress in terms of toileting, in terms of feeding themselves. Don't shortchange your child. Don't give up. Don't give up. We don't give up on anybody, right? I'm not giving up on you, and you're not giving up on your son. Stick with us. Learn these tools. Progress for everybody. Another person, somebody who is a regular participant, who wrote in and said, nothing. Things are different, but wonderful. He does make everything an adventure. And I love that. I absolutely love that. That person won something with us a couple of months ago and has not yet claimed it, so we have to work on that. In any case, another person who writes it and says, money, food. His change of diet affects what we eat and where we go to eat. Yes, I miss the days of being able to go to any restaurant. Right? You know, in the beginning when autism came to live and we, you know, we had dietary restrictions and I was like, oh man, I miss going to this restaurant. And then of course, you know, the financial hardship kicked in and we couldn't go anyway. But, you know, it's one of those things that we give up. We have a time limit on our outdoor activities. Our son loves to have fun, but when he's ready to go, he's ready. Yeah. You know, we give up a lot of different things. Another person who says, no sacrifice for me and my 3 other children. We're having a normal life, but I am very tired and often overstressed. I bring my 8-year-old son everywhere with me, and I will never let him down. You rock. You rock. But you're entitled to have days when you're way overtired. Another person who says schedules. I, as a mom, cannot go to town by myself with him. For now, right? That's something that can be worked on. Another person who says, my daughter had to drop out of college, and now they're giving her a hard time to go back. It has been a nightmare. Now she's trying to find a good school for my granddaughter who is autistic and going to kindergarten. My poor daughter is so overwhelmed. So it sounds like the mom of the daughter with autism is the one who had to drop out of college. For now. For now, if we do enough of the right things, the day will come when she can go back to college. It's a huge sacrifice. It's a huge sacrifice, and I don't want to in any way belittle it because that's a huge sacrifice. But you know what? I want to see when that mom walks across that stage, because that college diploma is going to mean more to her because she was there. And she did what she had to do. These are the things, these are the choices that we make, right? That is going to mean, and she will walk across that stage. She will. It's just going to take longer, but it's going to mean that much more to her. Another person who says, going to visit my family in the UK. My daughter is not ready for a 9+ hour flight. No kidding. Time for them to come. I'm sure she will be one day soon, you go. But we haven't seen my family in over 3 years now. Aside from that, we haven't given up much. Awesome. Another person who says, if I could only get my son to leave the house, it would be great. A lot of time my mom stays home with him so that they can go. That's something that can be worked on. Can take my other kids out. I just wish he would come out with us. That can be worked on too. Another person who says, when I think about this, I realize we traded a lot. We did not attend a lot of typical events for our family and friends. We had great struggles, financial, emotional, mental, physical. There is a lot I would have done otherwise, but I have also learned so much from my son and see what a gift he is to me and to so many others that learn from him and by interacting with him. We did not sacrifice. We made alternate choices. We did the best we could for our family, just as we would have with or without autism, right? Autism affects our choices every day, like most things. If my kid was allergic to peanut butter, I would choose not to give it to him. The same, but different. Love that, and I'm liking that. That's awesome. Okay. And there are so many more. Maybe we'll have time a little bit later to get back to some of these. But it is time for us to take a little break, and we are going to welcome back to the studio when we come back Angela Persicke, who is is going to be a regular here on the show with us, which we are thrilled. And she is in the Research and Development Department of the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And there's a whole host of things that we're going to be talking about with her. Now is a great time if you have questions to be writing in to our question forum. Remember that you can do that if it says live on autism-live.com. There's a question box. Type in your answer, hit enter. You don't have to subscribe. There's no cost. You don't have to sign up. You don't have to do anything except type in, hit enter, and it comes to us. And you can also send us an email. And we'll talk more about that when we come back, so stick with us.
My name is Crystal Shepard.
I'm Pete.
And our son Logan was diagnosed in February of 2003. Wow, it seems like a long time ago.
Yeah.
We were fortunate enough to find CARD when he was 20 months old. My husband called and said, "You need to go to this place. I've researched it. You need to go right now." So I went and knocked on the door, and we found Doreen.
Doreen, we sat down, and I'll never forget what she said. She goes, "Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get him caught up and make sure he never falls behind again." I was like, that's it, you know.
He's a very fun, popular kid. He
Rock
never
star.
Rock star. He's a drummer. Quite an accomplished drummer. He never stops talking. He's got a funny story and a smile for everybody that he meets. And it's pretty amazing. He's a completely different kid. Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
My name's Monica.
And I'm Mark.
And we have a son, Riley, and he is autistic.
Riley was almost completely non-communicative at the time that he was diagnosed. Really no language, no interest in speaking. And one of the big changes is he independently states a lot of things now.
I need to walk.
You need to walk? Make him walk. Asks for things that he wants, responds appropriately.
Hi, Daddy Dory.
Oh, so nice. We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider. And if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some guesses?
And now she engages with everybody. It's wonderful. She likes to play, and she's very affectionate, and she expresses that now. Her language has gotten a lot better just in the last 4 months. It's amazing.
Since starting with CARD, Amaya's made a ton of progress, and we couldn't be more grateful that she has become potty trained, started using utensils individually. She is learning how to navigate public, is holding our hands, and just wanting to be around people more. So we're so grateful for everything that you guys have done.
Hi, Dr. Persicke. Congratulations on your 20-year anniversary of CARD. I love all my CARD teachers. They are the best. And now I'd like to play you a Beatles song. It's called Cross the Universe.
I
first saw Dr. Persicke speak at a biomedical conference somewhere, and I was just so impressed with her. She stood up there and she talked with such confidence about recovery and what she could do for these children, and she had a whole curriculum, and I was just so impressed. But she said things like, teach them, help them to develop these other skills that they have. And I thought that was so neat hearing that from her, that it would be good for them socially and help them to bridge with others. And so over the years, that's actually something my son has developed. If he hadn't had speech therapy or OT over the years, he probably would be just about, pretty much the same child still, not so different. But if he hadn't had CARD, he would be a completely different child. This program has unlocked the door for him to have a bright future.
Bye. Thanks for watching.
My name is Rachel Pekorski, and I have a son, Kyle Pekorski, who's 7 years old now.
Cool art by Kyle.
Around 15 months, we noticed that he had lost some speech, that he was headbanging, he had tantrums, and we were lucky. We waited and we got in with CARD, and it started working right away.
I have another exciting feature. If you put more marbles in, they alternate.
He's in a second grade class. He's at the top of his class. He reads over 100 words a minute. He's reading at 5th grade level. He loves space and astronomy, and he'll tell you, why does Venus rotate backwards? Yeah, why don't the marbles go up? Why do they go down?
Because gravity.
And he's always wanting to know more.
Why are you the one that takes the microphone?
He loves to surf.
First, I didn't want to surf, but now I love to surf.
He loves to horseback ride.
I won a trophy.
You have made a difference in his life.
CARD helped me to save.
I owe everything to you.
Now, who built this? I did.
And are you a good builder?
Yes!
Welcome back to Autism Live. As promised, we are joined right now by our special guest today, Angela Persicke. And I've been saying that you're with Research and Development, but you have even a better title than that.
Yes.
Tell us.
I am the Assistant Director of Autism Research Group, the new nonprofit that we just started not too long ago.
Fabulous. And so we've asked Angela to come and be with us, and you're going to now be sort of a regular. We're finding the actual time slot of when she's going to be here, but talking about different topics. And you were just at an event on Saturday that we really want to start to talk about. We had talked about it briefly, what the event was going to be last week with Dr. Tarbox, but now it's taken place. So tell our viewers, if they weren't tuned in before, what this event was, and then let's talk about what happened.
Definitely. We did a seminar for the Korean American community on autism and intervention. And this was our first outreach event. We were this is one of our initiatives with ARG to provide validated, scientifically based research and assessment information to individuals no matter what language they speak, who they are, where they live. And so this was the first event of this initiative. And we worked with a church, actually, in downtown LA, the Glory Church of Jesus Christ. They provided the facilities, and they provided the equipment for translation, so the headsets, and they did most of the marketing, I guess you can say, too. So
help to connect you with the right people, because your audience that you were trying to reach were Korean Americans.
Exactly.
And in a lot of cases, there was going to be a language barrier. And in the past, past, this could have been a very underserved community because of that language barrier.
Exactly.
And I just admire that so much because, you know, we had Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson here yesterday, and she was talking about her journey and how difficult it was for her, being an English-speaking, well-educated, very articulate woman, and how hard it was for her to negotiate. She said, I was an executive producer in television high up, and I was having a problem. So what must it be like for somebody when English is not the first language? So I love the fact that you guys are doing this. So you work together with this church, and for this great event with you know, the headphones and the translation. So what actually happened at the event?
Okay, so we were able to have everything translated into Korean.
Amazing.
Because we have an amazing research assistant, Mick Young Park, working out of the San Juan Capistrano office with CARD, and she is fluent in Korean. And so she was she pretty much facilitated the whole event. And she translated all the slides of the PowerPoints, and so there was English and Korean, and we gave 3 talks. The first one was on just an introduction to applied behavior analysis and the research on outcomes, you know, for early intervention. And then I spoke about teaching independent living skills. So what we would do and the process of teaching independent living skills, and that it expands from simply putting on a shirt to teaching adults to use the internet. So there's a wide range of independent living skills that we teach and with the individuals we work with. And then Mick Young Park presented completely in Korean, and she talked about challenging behaviors and strategies for dealing with challenging behaviors. They were very receptive. About 50 individuals showed up for the conference, and we provided childcare. Everything was completely free. So this was just our first event to show that we are willing to reach out and to provide this information to individuals, even with this language barrier.
Yeah, absolutely, that it doesn't have to preclude a child getting this kind of help.
Exactly.
And so I can't imagine, you know, how grateful this community must have been for this information. What kinds of things were people saying about, you know, were people, you know, I'm sure it was a mix, but were people really excited about teaching the independent living skills, or were they really excited about the challenging behavior? What kind of reaction?
You know, most questions afterwards were about potty training, and I wasn't really expecting that at first. I with most of the individuals we work with, that's the first thing we do, and we have it down to a science at this point. And you know, less than 3 days we can get a child to be potty trained, and I don't know if they've had access to that as much, and they don't, you know, there's a lot of things that aren't translated into Korean, and especially the literature that's out there on this and the books on potty training. So they were very interested in that, the independent living skills. One topic that came to a surprise to us was sexuality education, because that is not discussed a lot, you know, in our field, and there's not a lot of research on it, but we deal with it all the time. We work with adolescents and young adults, and so that was one of the topics they were really interested in as well. But they asked us to come back and do more seminars for them in the future.
Awesome.
So that's really great, and then some possibilities of maybe opening, they were talking about opening a school for the families at their church that have children with autism, because they have a church and it's not utilized during the week and during the day, so they have the facilities to do it, and they're really interested in getting training for that. And
absolutely amazing. I want to go back a little bit to the toilet training thing, because you know, I find it interesting that that was one of the things that they brought up, and I find it really interesting your reaction to that. And I want to point out, because there are a lot of you out there who are watching who still think this is the biggest hurdle in the world, and I know that there are some of you who are watching right now who think my child cannot be potty trained. You know, I was afraid of that with my child, and I know that there are some of you who have a 3-year-old that you think it's not going to happen. You have a 10-year-old that you think it's not going to happen. You have an 18-year-old that you think it's not going to happen. And I really want to point out, because there are things that you guys know, and it's so funny. Once you know something, you know, it becomes a part of your world, and I think a lot of times you think that everybody else knows it. So I really want to point out that this is the way BCBAs look at potty training. They're like, oh, this is science. We can do this. That's their take on it, and we as parents need to suck some of that energy and realize, okay, this is not the big, huge, terrifying thing that is insurmountable that I thought it was, and get some help from a BCBA, because you just saw that's the attitude. Yeah, no, we can do this. We absolutely can do this.
And actually, there's a book out there by Azrin and Fox that says teaching potty training in less than a day. And if you take your whole day and this is all you focus on, you will see progress by the end of the day. And it's been very well researched, and it's possible.
Azrin and Fox. And we should point out that that includes children who are on the spectrum. We're not talking about potty training your neurotypical child. We're talking about children on the spectrum as well.
And this, Azrin and Fox, their research was specifically with individuals with developmental disabilities, including children with autism. So yes, it's possible, and it's possible for a 3-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 22-year-old.
So, you know, and I think that alone is going to be shocking to some people. They're going to go, really? Potty training is going to be that possible? So just wanted to point that out, because I loved when you said that. You're like, you know, we know how to do this. This is one of those things, this is almost a no-brainer, except that, you know, for some of you, I know that it isn't. But here's the information, and if you don't know, then you want to know it. And I'm sure that for those families, it was like that too, that you were, you know, it was like, what's she talking about?
Yeah. You know, I addressed it in my presentation, but, and I mapped out some guidelines of what you need to do, but then afterwards they had a lot of questions about it, and so we actually went through a full procedure of what it would look like to potty train.
Well, maybe next week that's what we should have you come in and do, because we always want to talk about toileting here. I was amazed, you know, I always advocate that we all have a local support group and that we have a more global support group, and you know, you're so in your own existence and the kinds of things that you're dealing with and the challenging behavior that your child is engaging in, that sometimes you don't take note of the things that they aren't engaging in. And one of the things overwhelmingly on my local support group that they talk about is toileting and how difficult it is, and with teenage children how difficult it is, and toileting through the night. And I cannot relate. I mean, I have empathy, but I cannot relate at all. My child, for whatever reason, because I do believe that you only get what you can handle, and somebody must have realized that I could not handle that. And so my child came out of the womb and did not soil a diaper during the night. I don't know why. But that was never an issue. It was completely, so it is a hole in my experience. So if you want to come and talk about toileting, and in particular that, because I hear from parents all the time and say, this is a nightmare. An absolute nightmare, and I don't know how I'm going to get out of it. And I go, man, how did I get so lucky that we didn't have to deal with that? But I'm sure that those families were so appreciative, and looking at all those independent living skills. We just, I don't know if you heard, but before the break we were talking about, the question of the day yesterday was, what did families sacrifice when their child, and one person had said, I let go of the idea that my child could live independently. But there's so much that we can teach to any child, correct?
Exactly.
And progress.
And these range, you know, a lot of adults with autism, that is specifically what they're working on, independent living skills with their care provider, and teaching them to do laundry themselves, and even just to get ready in the morning for get dressed, and those are fairly easy for us to teach, and they're usually involved in any program.
And you know, it's one of those things that, again, when you have it, you take it for granted.
Exactly.
And when you don't have it, it's really life-changing. But for the people who don't have, when those adaptive skills aren't coming along, boy, this is a great example of where ABA can come in and save the day. So really amazing. So you're going to go back and do more with them?
Yes, we are going to continue be in contact with them, and they were really receptive to having us back over and over for more seminars. So
that's wonderful.
It's very great.
That's fabulous. We're going to take a little bit of a break, but we're going to come back and talk more about some of the other outreach things that you guys are doing with the Autism Research Group, because you started with this one for the Korean families, but I know you have a lot more things in store. So if you're wondering about for your community, stick with us. We're going to be back with more with Angela Persicke. Stick with us. I just said
Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, and this is my son Jem. We're here today at the Home Depot. You might know that Home Depot is famous for giving free classes to adults on lots of things like tiling and other home crafts. Well, they also have free classes for kids as well. It's called the Kids Workshop. We love doing that, don't we, Jem?
Yeah.
It's cool. So come on inside with us and let's do a craft.
Yay.
The Kids Workshop is a program that's been around with Home Depot almost since we've been a company, and it's been developed to allow kids in the community to come in and give them an opportunity to build something, to be able to create something and be able to take just simple wood pieces and put them together with nails and hammers and screwdrivers and then paint them.
So you do this every first Saturday of the month.
Any Home Depot that you go to on the first Saturday of every month between 9 and 12, you can join different associates throughout different stores and build these projects with these kids.
And do they have to do anything beforehand, or can they just show up on that Saturday?
All they need to do is show up. We have all the tools, all the materials that the kids will need. We have aprons that we give to the kids that they can take home and maintain their pins. They get pins on a regular basis for completing projects. With that, they can keep track of how many projects they've done. And
it's all free.
It's all absolutely free, all provided.
Which is wonderful. And listen, I have to say, you know, you guys devised this for all kids to be able to do this.
Correct.
What I particularly love about it as an autism mom, it gives my child a place to come and learn a new skill, to socialize with kids of all kinds.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for. Home Depot is definitely loves to be involved with the community and bring the community in to work with us. That's what we love to do.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I just have to say, we were just showing a video about Home Depot and their kids' workshops that happen on Saturday. I want to remind everybody that there will be one coming up, not this weekend, but the weekend after, because it's the first Saturday of the month. It'll be a good 4th of July one. It's a fabulous time. Really cool. My son was in that video, and he loves going to the Home Depot. They built a craft. It's really cool.
That's really cool.
It is. It's fabulous. It's a great thing that they do. Their outreach for all kids, not just kids on the spectrum, but our kids on the spectrum are welcome to come and participate, and they're very accommodating. But we are joined right now by the wonderful and fabulous Angela Persicke, and she is the Assistant Director of the Autism Research Group. This is a wonderful organization, and we were just talking before the break about you guys participate in outreach programs. You just did a wonderful one for Korean Americans, but tell us what's on the planning sheet for what's coming up in the near future for Autism Research Group.
Well, we would really like to have materials available translated in multiple languages. What we would like to focus on right now is translating materials to Spanish. There's especially here in Southern California, a large population of Hispanic Americans, and they need this. I mean, most of the parents that I've worked with will not, who are non-English speaking, will, their children may not have, they may have to translate for the parent, but if you have a child with autism that doesn't have the communication, then we need to figure out a way to communicate with the parents, and this is huge, and they're not even getting the information about early diagnosis, and a lot of times not seeing a pediatrician that is knowledgeable about this, and so those are are some areas that we're really interested in getting in, going to pediatricians and other parent support groups that are out there, and just making available assessment tools and information about early signs of autism that will really help these communities see that they are being helped too. Because when I talk to some of these individuals, it seems like they don't feel included in this as much. So that's really our next step, is making like an information base and a resource base for people to come, like, to our website and find the information translated for them.
Right, in Spanish.
Yeah.
Really important, because, you know, we all know on this journey that information is key, right? You know, when you don't even know what question to ask, you know, it seems like a dead end. And anything that impedes our ability to get information is just another stumbling block. And sometimes it can be as simple or as complicated as different languages. Sometimes it can be as complicated as cultural differences too. And I know that, you know, in some cultures, we were just talking about this with somebody the other day, in some cultures, failing to make eye contact with your parent is seen as a sign of disrespect. And that parents, if they don't know that this is something that's actually a symptom of something else, it is not only a milestone that gets missed, but it creates havoc in the family. If you think that your child's, look, I know for me that my child had been making eye contact and then we lost eye contact. And I can remember a very specific day when I was talking to my son and he was not looking at me. I was getting no eye contact. He wasn't responding to his name. And I kept saying his name and saying, Jem, 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 and getting frustrated because I didn't know. My child had been making eye contact. And I turned him to look at me and said, look at me. And I was trying to get his face to look at me, and he wasn't looking at me for anything. And do you know what came out of my mouth? I said, what is wrong with you? Because I did not know. But it was clear to me that something was not right. But imagine if I had been, you know, fully raised in a culture in which this was a sign of ultimate disrespect. And what my reaction on top of that frustration would be, because then it's emotional and there's hurt, and that my child does not respect me. You know, it's a lot to overcome. So I think it's so important what you're doing. So important that we get the information, because we know those families want the information.
Of course. And
once they're educated.
And, you know, we come, like, the behavioral perspective, we look at everybody as an individual and take their individual histories into account when we're working with them. So the culture is part of that. It's a huge part of that. And we don't just go and try to fit every child into this mold that we created. We want to individualize everything we do, and this is part of it. It's a huge part of it. We live in America, and it's a huge melting pot. Like, we need to create various programs for individuals of different cultures and who speak different languages, and that hasn't really happened yet. Unfortunately.
It's shocking that it hasn't happened.
And that I feel that with the Autism Research Group, that is one of our primary initiatives, just to reach out to the communities that are in need now and are even receiving information from funding sources that isn't actually, you know, not correct as far as what the bill says, you know.
There's disparity.
Completely.
We can see that for families, you know, there was a newspaper article that detailed, just in the state of California, how much there were services available to families and how much was being spent per child in these different communities. And you could see clearly, it was shameful is what it was. It was absolutely shameful that there was less available per child in communities that were not English speaking, which a child, it's not fair. We need to level the playing field for parents. We need to level the playing field for children. And I love what you said about the cultural thing, because while we don't want cultural differences to make it harder for a child to get a diagnosis, that you guys are always respectful of cultural choices in your teaching.
Exactly.
That nobody's trying to make anybody adhere to a specific cultural choice, but just not having that cultural background prevent a diagnosis and prevent the child from being able to get support. But once they get the support, you have all kinds of individual choices you can make as a family and as a community.
We just, our primary goal is to allow the individual to function in their environment as independently as possible, and to be able to go on and navigate their social environment and learn from their environment. And if they are in a specific culture, that's very important, and we cannot discount that at all.
Absolutely, really important. I absolutely love that. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to ask Angela some questions about early diagnosis. And of course, our topic this entire week has been early intensive behavioral intervention. So we're going to ask her a little bit about that. If you want to ask a question, now is a great time to do that. If you're watching us on autism-live.com and it says live, then that question box is available to you. You can start typing in your question, hit enter. It will appear here before us like magic technology. Don't you love it? If you're watching and it says rebroadcast, or you're watching us on any of the other different outlets that are available to you, you can email us. And I'm going to ask Matt to put that email address up onto the screen for you before we go to break here. You can email us anytime, day or night. We will get your email. We know where Angela works. And so we'll be able to get an answer. We'll cover it on the show. There's the email address. Thank you, Matt. We'll get that answer back to you, and we'll cover it on the show, and we will email you back a response. So that's how you want to get a hold of us. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Stick with us. Awesome.
Hi, I'm Thea Davis. I'm a board-certified behavioral analyst. I am the clinical director of an organization that provides intensive ABA services to children with autism. Recently, we've been using the skills curriculum, which was produced by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. The skills curriculum is an online tool for providers or people working with children with autism, and it helps develop programming. There's many features that I like about this online tool. The first one is the breadth and depth of the curriculum. It covers many domains, any domain that you need to teach a child with autism. I also like the fact that as it's helping develop programming, it gives you sample IEP goals. It also gives you data sheets that you could utilize to target different skill areas. The last piece of the curriculum that I think is essential, that I have not found on any of the other curriculums, is the ability to individualize it to the child that you're working with. So you can go in and change it to your own programming, take pieces that you like, tweak it to whatever that child's needs are. The fourth part of the curriculum is a tool called e-learning, and we have begun using that for our direct care staff. It's an online series of modules which teaches the background and philosophy of applied behavioral analysis, and we've actually now added that to our training protocol. All of our therapists go through the CARD e-learning prior to even getting their instruction from the supervisors, which helps us have a more effective training and efficient training program. The part that I like the most about the skills as a clinical director is that it offers support to my supervisors. Not only does it help them develop programming, but it helps them be extremely productive with their time. I recommend this online tool for any provider, parent, or school that works with children with autism.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders from their headquarters in Tarzana, California. Our special guest right now continues to be Angela Persicke. She is the Assistant Director of the Autism Research Group, and she's been talking to us about an event that they just had in their outreach program. We want to talk a little bit, shift gears a little bit though, and talk about the importance of early diagnosis.
Yes.
So you work in research. You're a person who can talk to us about why that is so important. We know that people have been saying this for years. This is not a new topic, but there's more and more research to suggest that it's more important even than we have been letting on. So just upping the ante. We know that it involves more kids than ever. CDC is saying 1 in 88.
Yes.
And we have every expectation that that number is going to go up in the coming years, or down in the lower. Yes, more kids affected. So why is early diagnosis so crucial?
Well, the research has shown, the studies, beginning with the Lovaas study, the seminal study that showed about 40% of children receiving, no services and typical IQ, typical functioning after a couple years of early intensive behavior therapy. Follow-up studies, and it continued to show that children getting in 2 to 3 years old for 3 years will have better outcomes. About 30%, 30 or more percent will have better outcomes and could actually lose their diagnosis. This has been shown over and over and over. Unfortunately, no clinical trials where they will randomize the children to groups for early intervention. So with toddlers has been conducted, except for one program, the Early Start Denver model, which is a combination of behavioral intervention and a relational development approach. So it's more of an eclectic approach. And they had starting at 18 months. 18 to 24, 30 months, they started receiving services. They randomized them into groups, and the children who were receiving the Early Start Denver model had much better outcomes and a reduction in their autism severity as well after 2 years. So that's the only clinical trial that has been conducted on early intervention.
We're talking 18 months.
Yes, early. And research continues to look at the early signs of autism, even beginning at 4 to 6 months. So looking at videos of children who had a later diagnosis of autism compared to typically developing children, and these videos show that there are differences in social behavior.
At 4 to 6 months.
4 to 6 months. And also some motor anticipatory behaviors, such as during feeding. So when the spoon comes towards their mouth, the children with autism are slower to, and they don't anticipate the spoon coming towards their mouth. Just things like that they've noticed, subtle differences between children who have a later diagnosis of autism and typically developing children. There is some agencies or some funding agencies will now give a diagnostic categorization of at risk, and these are specifically for children who may have an older sibling with a diagnosis. So they'll say this child is demonstrating some deficits, but they may not meet the full criteria, but because they have an older sibling with autism, they are considered at risk. And there have been children who've received services, 30 to 40 hours a week of behavioral therapy with that at-risk diagnosis, starting at one year or a little older. And for some of these children, after about a year or a little more of intervention, they don't qualify for a diagnosis anymore.
Which, we don't want to jump too far ahead of ourselves, but put yourself in the position of that parent. So you have one child and they're on they're on the spectrum, and you've got another child who's at risk, and, looking at just timeline of saying, there's a possibility that you could put a year in and have your child not have deficits and not ever qualify for a diagnosis. I think that most parents would think that that was great news. I think that most parents would want the second child to participate in the therapy, because if you're, you know, it all comes down to logistics. That when we talk about why it's important to start early, if for no other reason, because we know that our children get behind.
Exactly.
And how far behind do we want them to be when we start?
Exactly. And according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the average age of a diagnosis is like 4 to 5 years old, and that is, you know, the child is already far behind. And it's understandable, you know, especially if you have only one child. You may not notice the deficits until the child is, you know, in a social group of peers in kindergarten, and you start to see that, oh, he's not really acting the same way as these other children. But primarily what this research is showing is that we need to identify risk factors. Risk factors starting, you know, as early as 4 to 6 months that we can say, like, okay, these are risk factors, and let's catch the child up. Let's not make it so we wait a couple years and then see what happens. We want to remediate these deficits before the child has a chance to fall behind. And that's really what the possibility of prevention looks like. It's not preventing the disorder at a genetic, at a biological or neurological level. We're not talking about that at all. It's really preventing the child from falling behind and having enough deficits to qualify for a diagnosis. And these are all case studies. There has been no randomized control trials putting you know, a certain group of children at risk in one group and to receive services, and another one in just the wait group. That has not been done yet, and it may not be possible to do because
I think it'd be unconscionable.
Exactly. You know, I would not want. I know. I would not want to wait if I started seeing deficits and if my child was at risk. But and when we also have to be cautious when we're talking about this, because the children who are at risk may not actually ever receive a diagnosis. They could have been a little bit behind for one reason or another and then catch up. So, but
if they're behind and they get caught up, where's the loss here?
Exactly.
You know, isn't that what any parent, if your child's behind, you want them to get caught up, and if they can, well then let's get that done. And I hope that anybody who's listening to this, that you remind yourself, there are so many of us that at some point went to a pediatrician and the pediatrician said, don't worry, just wait. Everything will be fine. Which, you know, I always say that's my clinical word for it is a steaming pile of poo. That's what that is. There's no waiting. If your child is behind in anything or has lost a skill or isn't developing a skill, and somebody says, oh, just sit around and wait, that is not the person for you to spend your time with. Go down the hallway, go down the street, go down the highway, and find somebody who thinks that your child acquiring skills is something that's important and immediate.
Exactly.
So that's where I'm coming from.
Yes, I completely agree. And it's, you know, it's all about making sure that the child doesn't fall so far behind that we have to get them to the point where they're learning 2 or 3 times at a 2 or 3 time higher rate than a typical child just to catch them up. And for a lot of these children who were given the at-risk classification early, received services, and didn't qualify for a diagnosis a year or 2 later, they are, I think they followed one of these children into kindergarten. And this was a published study in 2002, and this child did not require an IEP or an aide and was in a general ed classroom.
Gotta love that.
So that's great, of course. But of course, it was one child, it was a case series. It's very difficult to generalize the results to everybody.
Yeah, but I think it goes back to common sense that, you know, if our children can be helped now, and not be as far behind, then why wouldn't we?
Exactly.
That's just common sense. And especially for families who are watching, if you've got an older child that has already gotten a diagnosis, and I know you're worried about your younger kids. I know you're absolutely worried, and realizing, okay, there are some different things from 4 to 6 months that's really kind of amazing, that are really subtle, that I think most of us would not ever pick up. But if they want to know more about that, Angela, what should they do?
They can email our informational email. It's info@autismresearchgroup.org, and they can ask any questions. We can actually provide some articles for them as well. So any questions they have, we'll be able to follow up with those. I look at that email every day, so I'll be able to get back to you fairly quickly.
Awesome. And early intervention. I mean, it's the thing that we all have to be looking for, but keeping in mind that early is it's a subjective term, right? What is early? And we're seeing that that's changing. I mean, I remember when people were saying, well, if you get in before 4, that's early. And then people saying, well, you want to get there by 3, and then saying, well, 2.5. And now I'm hearing about 15-month-old and 18-month-old. And if we're starting to be able to recognize things in a 4 to 6-month-old, this is very exciting. But I also have to remind everybody, if you have a child that is older, and you got that emotion going, I didn't know, let it go for today, right? You're entitled to your emotion, but let it go and have early be today. Because if you wait another year, you're just going to be that much further behind. So early, subjective, early means now.
And you know, the research does show better outcomes for individuals who receive services early. But if you have an 8-year-old that is just starting, they are going to make a lot of progress as well. You know, we continue to learn until we die, and so we have the methods to be able to teach any individual skills that need to be taught. So. Start. It's just starting now.
You know, the terrible example that I always think of, I remember years ago, watching Regis Philbin, and he was saying that he was starting to take piano lessons. And I remember, I think it was Kathy Lee Gifford at the time, it was that long ago, said, you're going to start piano lessons now, how old are you? And he said, well, but you know, I want to be able to play before I die, and I might as well start now. I should have started before, but now is a great time to start. And he now does concerts, plays the piano in concerts. And I did not start on that day when we were all making fun of Regis Philbin. I'm still not playing the piano. And he is playing the piano. So when would now be a good time? Absolutely now. All right, Angela, thank you so much for being with us. I look forward to us doing this on a weekly basis. And for our viewers getting used to being able to write in and ask you questions about these kinds of things.
Definitely.
So next week, toileting?
Yeah,
all right.
Toileting.
All right, it's a date. We'll tell you when, because we haven't figured out exactly when with her schedule, but we're going to take a break. We're going to come back and finish out the show, and we do have a question from a viewer that I haven't gotten to yet, so we are definitely going to talk about that. Some good news, and we'll also continue to update you on the Tom Hibben family fire, so stick with us. Okay. Cool.
When Maddie was diagnosed, I'll be honest, I was very ignorant on what autism was. I knew that autism was basically something that hit boys at the age of 2 to 3 and shut down. And sometimes you think of the typical Rain Man movie. And with Maddie, she was doing all the same signs and symptoms of a typical child with autism spectrum disorder.
Stand up.
She didn't even acknowledge us coming into the room. She had barely any eye contact. She didn't interact with her sisters. She didn't really do anything. She just basically lined up her toys, and that was about it. We have a team of 7 volunteers, or 8 now. We have 8 volunteers, including my husband and I. And I'm the team leader, and so I do all the curriculum and get everything ready each week.
Jana was downstairs until 11 o'clock at night working on curriculum, going through 2 different textbooks. And then we, as a group, meet on Monday nights, and we would go through what the curriculum was from Jana. And a lot of times we would go, how exactly do you do that? How do you sit her at the table and do this trial base? What skills has done for us, it's taken that away from Jana trying to figure out the curriculum for one. She can go down, or even our laptop, and she can sit down and through all these questions, it comes up with the different programs.
At least for me, it was a relief off my shoulders. I was worried that I might be missing something, missing a curriculum that maybe she needs to know, where skills, they have every possible thing your child needs to know from 0 to 7. They have a program for that.
What noise is this?
Good job! Every program that we did with her, I knew it was specific for what she needed to learn. Because before skills, it was a lot of, okay, well, is that really age appropriate for a 2-year-old? You know, because it's not generalized. It's anywhere from 0 to 7. This is what your child needs to know. In most manuals, you'll find. But for this, okay, yep, she should be learning this. And no, she's not 4 yet. She doesn't need to know that yet.
We are so fortunate that Jana was able to attend a conference put on by CARD that opened the door for skills, and that there's no looking back for us.
We started using the program in November. It seemed like by January something just clicked, and she has completely kind of came out of her fog that she was in for quite a while.
I have never read a documented case on any child that has not benefited anything from applied behavior analysis, and now with this new skills and being, you know, like the E version of ABA, I can't imagine it doing anything harmful to their child. It's nothing but exponential growth for us.
To see her now, it just blows us away. I mean, we call her our little miracle child because in 7 months' time, she's just blossomed into this normal, functioning child, and suddenly, we joke about it all the time, like suddenly we have twins.
If you're even thinking about doing it, do it. Because the absolute worst thing you can do is do nothing at all. And even if you use this program and it's just a single mom or a single dad working in the evenings with their child, this program is going to benefit them. It's going to show you where they are, it's going to show you where they need to go, and it's going to show you what skills and how to get there. It is an online book on how to help recover your child.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We had a question through the night and I wanted to share it with you because it's kind of a fun one. I'm going to put it up. If you're watching us on Autism-Live, you can see it live right now. The question was, I have a fun question because this guy is a winner. I am very proud. One of my clients with autism is just graduated with their diploma cum laude. Unfortunately, I cannot give his name because of privacy. We certainly understand that. He's 18 and loves Frank Sinatra. So the question is, does anyone have any old LPs of Frankie? This would be a great gift for this future student. Now, we didn't get an address or contact, so if you're watching us, we do, we have a way that we can separate that and not show that to everybody. But if there's something you want in particular, or you want a response back from us when you type into your question box, make sure that we'll make sure that we don't post it so that we don't send it out to the world. But let us know how we can contact you. And if any of you have any Frank Sinatra albums that are sitting around gathering dust that you would like to donate, let us know, and we'll make sure that we can find the way to get them to this young man who, with autism, graduated, got his diploma cum laude. That's really amazing, and totally appreciate that. In other news, some of the different things that we've been talking about, I'm just going to mark that question complete. Some of the things that we've been talking about today, the unfortunate news is that Tom Hibben, one of our guests on this show, a wonderful, wonderful autism dad and a blogger. He writes the blog Adventures in Asperger's. He is the dad of 3 young boys, one of them on the autism spectrum. And he was a paramedic, but left that field to start a photography business with his wife so that he could be there more for his family and for his kids to be a support while they were going through this journey through autism. And unfortunately, we have been told that they lost their home yesterday to a fire. And my understanding is that everybody is okay, but that they lost their possessions and that they lost all of their photography equipment. I can't even imagine being on this journey through autism and all the things you got to deal with, you know, the headache, the paperwork, and everything else, and dealing with all of the things that this comes with, right? And then getting to this point, and this is a guy who is positive and happy and finds the way, right? And then to have this happening. I really hope that as a community we can all hold hands and support this family and help them through this difficult time. There is a fund that has been started on fundraiser.com to raise monies for the family. You can go to fundraiser.com and put Hibben Fire Fund in. It's on Facebook. It's on our page on Facebook as well, on the Autism Live Facebook page. And it is also on, I just posted it on my Facebook page. And so encourage you, if you have something to donate, whether it is $1 or if you have old clothes for kids that you're cleaning out the closet and you are about to give them away and you want to donate clothes, or if you have nothing in terms of possessions or money to give because you're in this journey in a different place and that you don't have it to give right now, please don't be ashamed of that. But if you would, share this with your friends and family and with your community so that at least thoughts and prayers, and if somebody else has money to give, then they will. It's what we would want if this were happening to us, right? To feel that our community heard and saw, and that their thoughts and prayers would be with us, right? So we send out our thoughts and prayers to the Hibben family in hopes that through this tragedy that they're finding you know, at least some peace in knowing that they're safe, and some peace in knowing that their community is wrapped around them and sending them love and hope. Because it's an amazing dad. It's an amazing family. Again, it's Adventures in Asperger's. I have not gone to his site today to see if he's been able to post. I'm gonna guess not, but maybe he has. We'll take a look at that in a second and see. Also want to remind you that the U.S. Supreme Court ruled this morning and upheld the mandate for the Affordable Care Act, which has repercussions for people in our community, that if things stay the way they are today, that as of January 1st, 2014, we will have an Affordable Health Care Act that provides that everyone needs to have access to insurance in one way or another, and that essential services have to be covered. And by the way, behavioral health, ABA, is included in there. So for those of you who are sitting at home and thinking, okay, I don't have insurance reform in my state, or I have insurance reform in my state, but I have a self-funded plan, so we're not covered. That would be my husband's plan. That if things stay the way they are right now on January 1st of 2014, our children will be able to receive funding for ABA. Take that to mean, you know, what you want, because more than anything, I don't want to politicize autism, but that is what is happening as of this moment in time, and we'll wait and see what happens. Okay, we're here at the end of the show, and there's been a lot of different things that we've talked about, and I want to remind you that tomorrow's Friday. We're trying to get an autism insurance expert in to talk about some of the bigger ramifications of what happened today and what it means for our kids. Hoping that we're going to be able to do that. Haven't been able to nail that down yet. But we also at 11 o'clock tomorrow have Dr. Jonathan Tarbox with us. He is the head of research and development here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and he's wonderful. I mean, what else can you say about him? He is absolutely fabulous. He understands understands how parents need to be spoken to in terms of, he has a way of explaining things that are less jargon intensive and has a wonderful sense of humor. So I hope you'll tune in tomorrow at 11 o'clock for Research with Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. We've been talking about a lot of different things this week. We've had a lot of guests on, and it's been a really fun and I hope empowering week with information and help for us as parents, because we have to make it on this journey too, right? So, you know, when we have time, I always like to end with a little parent-to-parent moment, and I just want to remind you, wherever you are, in whatever place that you are, and this has really been the topic for the week, early intensive behavioral intervention, and early meaning now. And I said at the beginning of the week, you know, and I've been saying for weeks now, tell us what your issues are, why you haven't been able, if you haven't been able to, because I hope you have, but if you have not been able to get on board the proper number of hours of ABA for your child, please tell us why. I want to know why, because here's what I want you to know. It is my belief, it is my entire belief that whatever it is surmountable if you have enough help and support and information. That is my belief. And if you heard what I just said and your gut rejected it and said, no, it isn't, I want you to prove it to me. I dare you. Let's do this together. And I'm not just talking about you and me. I'm talking about you and me and a whole lot of people. Let's do this together and see if you can prove me wrong, because I think it's possible wherever you are. And if we have to do a whole bunch of work and at the end I go, you know what, I was wrong. Where you live right now, it's not possible. It's not going to happen. No way, no how. I know that isn't going to happen. And you know how I know that? Because so many people have found the way. So many people have found the way. And if you haven't found the way, that does not speak ill of you. It just means you haven't found the way yet. Would you do me a favor and let us help you to find your path onto that? I guarantee you somebody's already done it. Somebody has already found the way where you are, and all we have to do is find out how they did it and put you on that path. You know, there's nothing worse than feeling like you're missing the on-ramp onto something really valuable and spending a whole lot of time driving around in circles looking for the on-ramp. And we've heard over and over and over this week that your child doesn't have the time, that you don't have the time. Your stomach lining can't handle the stress of that. Why would you do that? Please let us help you to find the on-ramp, and it's going to be different for different people. So whether you're living in Idaho or you're living in China, the on-ramp is going to look different. The signs are going to be different, but we can help you to connect with the people who can show you the map and get all of our kids what they deserve. So wherever you are, please know that you can do this, and don't feel bad about that. This show is going to end, but as the show ends, the conversation continues. There are lots of ways for you to get a hold of us. We've tried to mention them throughout the show, but let's go over them again from the top. And Matt will start to show some of those things for you on the screen. You can email us. Whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world, when you email us, we'll get the email. We'll cover it on the next available live show. But not only that, when you let us know how we can get in contact with you, we'll send you a link to it. We'll send you a typewritten response. We'll put you in touch with the people that you need to be in touch with. You can also phone in, and you can Skype in. You can leave us a message in one of 1,000 different ways, right? But you can Skype and leave us a message if we're not here. Let us know the kinds of things that you want to know. You can talk to us on Facebook. We have a brand new page, Autism Live on Facebook. We hope that you will start interacting with that page. I'll be checking in from time to time, even over the weekend and during the night, so that you can interact with me and with other people involved as well. We have Twitter. You can be tweeting with us. What a wonderful thing to be able to do. We so enjoy it when you guys participate in that way. And by the way, there are so many ways to watch us. You can be watching us on Blip TV. You can be watching us on YouTube. You can download us for free on iTunes, and you can also be watching us on Ustream. There are a lot of different ways to participate, and you don't have to, right? You can be watching the show video and not participating. But I hope that when you have a question, you'll let us know, because I'm here and I want to be useful. I want to be helpful to you, and I'm working, you can't see all of them, but I'm working with a big staff of people who get up every morning and want to be able to help you. So if you're feeling alone, don't feel alone. Reach your hand out, type out, dial the number, and let us know the kinds of things that you need. We're going to work as hard as we can to help and point you in the right direction. And whatever it is, whatever's holding you back from ABA, we want to take that on with you, because we know this is what works for our kids. So tomorrow, Dr. Jonathan Tarbox, and please take a moment to at least send thoughts and prayers to the Hibben family for their home and their lost possessions. But we're going to be here tomorrow at 9 a.m. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.